versus not picking up the best cards though. Really heavy stuff and
gets him out of the way though.
It does. That's true.
Oh, SI7 agent gets drawn for Thunder Up, and now you're looking at a circumstance where Thunder Up, can potentially just buy value back on the other side. I don't know if this is the turn necessarily to do it. I would like to see a dagger up.
He's got 3 5-drops in hand.
Yeah, I wanted to see a dagger up that turn.
Not a turn 4 play.
I really wanted to see a dagger up that turn. Argent Squire, attack a minion, dagger up.
He's really valuing immediate board presence.
Well,
over thinking for the long term and having a play in.
He still can get paid off from this, though. We got an extra minion in play, and now he can just dagger up next turn with no play left to be had, and then use the Snapdraw Shell Fighter to really reinforce that board position.
Now, Fledgling drawn, which is a playable card, and he can protect it on board by making 2 trades, but doesn't get the dagger up.
I want the dagger. Dagger's 2 mana, kill 2 things over 2 turns.
So many options.
Vicious Sledging is 3 mana, don't dagger up.
Yeah, if I could not use that Divine Favor, he would be drawing very slow right now. He just would have seen Champion's Ball. He would be seeing Baku the turn after that, and then seeing Blessing of Mine. I know you can't look at the game that way.
And he'd have extra minions on the board. He would have fit in 2
Yes.
more button presses because he wouldn't have made the double 1-drop play on turn 2.
And that, to me, is going to be the question. Is the access to resources worth more? Or was it the board presence? And right now, the Champion's Ball is going to make up some of that board presence he lost. And, extremely importantly so.
Yeah. Well, this is going to work out really well for Ike. I've been just trying to think through both these players' lines in this early game. And I know myself I would have done things differently on both accounts, but I can see the merit in each of them. Ike's is trying to go all in on Divine Favor early game to get his resources.
Stonehill is just, it was like almost perfect in this situation. The fact that it blocks both the dagger and this 3/8 are just such a massive difference in what we were looking at the turn before this. That Stonehill actually might have put Ike at an extremely decisive position. And I think there's a number of cards actually that would have accomplished that same thing, but the Stonehill it's such an innocuous card that's playing such a big role right here.
Yeah.
And I could take that opportunity to push.
Shellfire next to a Tar Creeper, though, is actually a pretty scary thing.
It is a scary thing, but the problem is he doesn't really have any way to fight for board left outside of just playing minions and hoping that's good enough, and Ike has loaded his hand with big buffs.
Well, Tar Creeper is his way to fight through board.
That's an issue.
Because you effectively have to get through 13 points of taunt to kill the Tar Creeper. Because the Snapjaw Shell Fighter is going to eat up at least the first 8 points of damage.
Make that 7.
Make that 7. And then the Tar Creeper will have to eat up another 5.
I get what you're saying, but this is a 6-minion raid leader that's landing.
Also, this is not a control deck. This is Odd Rogue, which wants to be doing the same thing that Odd Paladin's doing. So even once that Shell Fighter absorbs all that damage, who cares? Because he has no development beyond that, outside of a bunch of 5-drops that rely on you having minions on board to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Or in Vile Spine Slayer's case, cheap minions to play with it.
Thunder Up is never getting the board again. I think with that turn on the raid leader, 6 minions, that Ike has locked up the game. I would be shocked if Thunder Up won this game.
Get it.
That is exactly where I was going with it. And I could see your head starting to, the cog wheel starting to turn, and you're like, something's happening here, and I don't quite know what yet.
Well, Firefly Vile Spine Slayer onto the raid leader.
Ugh.
And then the
Yeah.
8/8 Frostwood Warlord hits the board, and you're dead.
I think that's the play, though.
Maybe Ike leaves his minions on the board. He can set up a Fungomancer and make some good trades.
Yeah, like maybe a Tsunami comes through, only hits Ike's side of the stage.
Maybe Ike's hand is double Vine Cleaver, Blessed Maul, Baku.
I think that might still win. I mean, the Vine Cleaver just sounds scary enough.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And one of the big factors too is that Ike's got freedom in that decision too. Does he want to push, or does he want to be, as I put it in the Hunter matchup, responsible?
Reporting for
Just keep playing around Fungalmancer. Don't let them land it.
No Phantom Knives in the deck. Ike knows that.
And without Cold Blood's able to be in the deck anymore, Myra's is way less scary.
Yep. What Myra will do here is maybe pick up a Tar Creeper, and if not, make Thunderup die faster.
So Thunderup wouldn't die immediately unless Ike had damage from hand. So I think that the out for Thunderup, looking from his perspective, is to Myra's into basically all the damage that's left in the deck. Because after the Myra's, you get to Dagger Up and Deadly Poison. That represents 8 damage. And that means Ike has 13 health left, which would be Leroy,
Double Southsea.
Double Southsea, and wow, am I still having trouble piecing together the damage?
There's nothing else.
Oh, gosh, you're right.
Wolf finds Leroy 1 Southsea in SI.
So Dagger Up and Deadly represents 8. The second Deadly makes that 10. You have Southsea Deckhand for 12, Leroy for 18, and then SI7 Agent for 19, 20.
Does he even have enough mana for that?
this guy's
Nope.
No Tar Creeper picked up. Takes the defensive line, which
Means Ike is going to secure the board with just the Annoya module, slam a Frostwolf Warlord, trade off on the board. Fatigue's going to set in, and Thunderup's done for.
reporting for duty.
no outs. Then I'm going to take a long look at this board and think I'm very, very dead.
I give up.
Ike, 3 games to 2 over Thunderup, and moves on to the winners match in his group. This was a tough-looking set, and it went back and forth. Ike takes first 2, Thunderup answers back quickly. And I'll tell you what, when you're sitting in that tournament seat and the games are swinging back and forth like that, it feels a lot different than it is just kind of watching it and be like, oh, it's tied up now.
Yeah.
No, both players are extremely nervous in that spot, and typically the player who has lost the second 2 games has a much tougher mentality than the player who has just won 2 games. They're usually feeling pretty confident, but I think the matchup that Thunderup had there, it just being such a poor one for Odd Rogue, it ends up being a big payoff for Ike and the Odd Paladin.
Yeah, and regardless, if you know you have an inevitable matchup coming up where you're favored, that's still a very tough scenario to be in, and fatigue can settle in. And sometimes you can get in your own head when you're like, okay, this is a favorable matchup, I should win it. And then you start to think, uh-oh, what if he has the perfect draw? What if I lose this matchup that I'm supposed to win? Could I have done something different earlier? But fortunately for Ike, he doesn't have to worry about that because he took his initial match over Thunderup. And for now, we have Raven standing by with an interview.
All right, congratulations, Ike. Good job on the win. And first things first, thanks for sitting down to not make me look too short, as I wish more people would be this considerate. But initially, let's take a look at that series. How were you feeling going into it? And most importantly, how did you feel the Odd Paladin would perform going into the series?
So going into it, I played like 100 sets against his lineup, so I felt like it was pretty even overall. I thought a lot of it would come down to pick order, which I kind of nailed by getting the Hunter into the even lock, which was the most important. I think the Odd Paladin was fine overall. The even lock's obviously a bad matchup, and then I think the Hunter is pretty even, and then the Odd Paladin's pretty favored. So, I mean, it usually got there in testing.
Yeah, well, I managed to get there in this series as well. I will say, if you just if we go back to the Odd Paladin versus the Hunter matchup, there were moments, especially with those hyenas, that you could have ignored them and just pushed a lot of damage, but you chose to trade into them and sort of play it safe, I'll call it. Why was that, and do you think in hindsight that was the right decision?
Yeah, that game really ticked me off because I think I played it pretty poorly. In hindsight, I should have went face more. I had a read that he had no secrets by the Spellstone turn, so I figured he didn't really have a way to win besides pretty much exactly what happened, which was Explosive Trap into Zul'jin. So I felt like playing it safe was, at the time, correct, because I had the gas from the Vine Cleaver, and I had the swing turn with Vine Cleaver Dread Corsair. But yeah, but after that game was over, like, I was tilted, but it was really important to make sure to try to stay focused because every game's a new game.
Okay, and just finally, you've received a lot of support from your peers and the community in general. What does it feel like, playing on the stage and knowing you've got that many people supporting you? And does it add any more pressure when you're playing? Are you thinking about that?
So as for support, it means more than you think. Like, having motivation from the community is not only like fuel, but it's also just really nice. It doesn't really make me play differently. I feel like I'm pretty confident in my games and whatnot, but level 2 Ike is pretty strong.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing level 3 at some point, no doubt. So congratulations again on the win, well deserved. And we'll go back over to TJ and Admirable to finish up the show.
Thanks very much, Raven and Ike. Also, a pretty inspiring story of perseverance as well. Ike, unfortunately, has had a condition his whole life that's led to many surgeries on his legs, as well as chronic leg pain that keeps him bedridden a lot of the time. And he said many times on social media, to us, to his peers, that Hearthstone, kind of keeps him going and makes those moments shorter. So it's kind of cool to see him, despite all that, come up here and put on a great performance, starting off with the win. Love me some Mike.
Yeah, it's been, again, quite inspiring to see him travel the circuit, even despite the pain, and fight through it, and with a clear head on top of that. I can't even imagine what it was like to keep a clear head when I'm just sitting next to TJ, let alone going through anything that, has any real-world considerations.
Yeah, try being me. But taking a look at Group C, Ike's going to go on to face Definition in the winners matchup, and that elimination matchup set up between Tai Meow and Thunder Up. So both those players one loss away from being eliminated from the Winter Championship. But what a match that was. We got to see Odd Paladin for the first time this tournament. Looking forward to seeing much more with Ike moving on to that winners match. It's kind of weird to think that it's refreshing sight to see Odd Paladin after all those Xerix cloning gallery priests we were watching all day long, Admirable.
Yeah, don't tell me more about that deck. I'm sick of it and I don't want to see it anymore. Shut up already, Sottle.
All right, but Ike takes the victory 3-2 over Thunder Up. We're 6 matches in the books, which means just 2 more to go left here for day number 1 at the HCT Winter Championship. We're going to have more action coming up here from the tavern, so don't go anywhere. It's almost more Hearthstone time.
Coming up, Lion King versus Bunny Hopper. With the developers.
The esports scene in Hearthstone being as friendly and as interactive as it is, I would have to say is probably, at least in part, attributed to the fact that it really is intended to be a game for everyone. It's meant to be easy to learn, easy to get into.
We always wanted Hearthstone to be kind of a warm, friendly, welcoming game, and although there is this competitive aspect to it, we've strived to make the game very friendly.
Oh, are you watching? Are you watching right now?
Well, I think the vibe of Hearthstone itself is one about coming together. It's about the tavern, it's about all these people, races coming together across time and space to enjoy a game of Hearthstone together. And I think that vibe actually really carries over into real life when you're playing Hearthstone.
I think there's a lot of charm and whimsy to Hearthstone that kind of keeps it lighthearted.
I think it's a little bit harder to get too tilted over something that's just like inherently a little bit goofy.
It's legendary.
There's also the fact that it's a single player means there's not as much inter-team conflict that can occur, and negative play happens, the player kind of knows, oh, I made a mistake, or I'll keep that in mind, I'll do better next time.
It's very important to have really good practice partners in Hearthstone, and especially if you want to be a competitive player, and sharing ideas, sharing strategies, and a lot of what's best about Hearthstone is when you're playing with friends and trying to work together to solve the problem of a specific tournament.
Despite it being like competitive, you still are having a great time with it, and you still have moments that you laugh about. Sometimes cynically when all 8 missiles hit face or something.
That's gonna happen to you, right? Like that's kind of what makes the game great in some respects. You're just having a lot of really cool Ragnaros shots hitting you and missing you, and like having the bullet whiz by your head and hit your minion, and like that that heart palpitation going, and like those moments are just core to Hearthstone, I think.
Welcome to Rastakan's Rumble, Hearthstone's newest expansion, including 135 new cards. Hosted by the God King Rastakan, the Rumble is a gladiatorial celebration of all things troll, where 9 teams, one for each Hearthstone class, have converged on Gurabashi Arena to fight for glory. Each team is dedicated to Aloha, primal gods of prodigious power, who fight in the arena with amazing, game-changing abilities. The Loa empower their team with spirits, rare minions that bolster their team's strengths with potent passive effects and gain stealth for the first turn. Each team is led by a champion, legendary troll minions handpicked by the Loa for the Rumble. The abilities of Loa, Spirit, and Champion combine to form incredible synergies, making amazing effects possible. Some cards have the new keyword Overkill. When cards with Overkill attack and deal more damage than a target's health, they trigger a powerful bonus effect. We'll see you in the Rumble.
最难取胜的就是邦内 Hopper 和类似于邦内 Hopper 的快攻 lineup， 这就是最难取胜的。
No, I think this time I brought a very conventional lineup.
如果要晋级的话，必须要出小组赛，但是第一轮就碰见他，所以并不是什么好事情。
It's my target to be able to make it out of groups foremost, and then top 4 if possible, and of course we'll go from there.
他的 lineup 比较极端，然后但是在我们那组特别的好，因为他是4个快攻，然后呢，我们那组
I knew that I was up against Lion King. He's an anti-control player. He loves to play things like Q block and other a little bit more greedy decks.
所以我觉得我如果战胜邦内 Hopper 进入4强以及夺得冠军都是非常容易的。
I kind of prepared my lineup to be able to face something like Q block and Quest Rogue, so that I got myself a decent matchup versus my first opponent.
他在我们那组出现的形式特别好。
I should be about 70% favored against every one of them, which in Hearthstone is huge.
我是 Lion King， 如果我在对局中挂掉的话，我就会，像那张长鬃草原诗一样，然后，释放王语，放2条猎狗去咬巴内 Hopper。
But in German we say mal 5 gerade sein lassen, which means just let 5 be an even number and, just get on with it.
Welcome everyone to Group D. It's the beginning of the end here for the first day of competition at the Winter Championships. Bunny Hopper versus Lion King. You heard it from themselves about how they feel about this matchup. And I'm looking at the numbers, Kibler, and it's looking real bad for Lion King. We saw some one-sided matchups earlier. This might be our most one-sided matchup.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how Viper's matchup earlier today against Noblord was very one-sided. This could be even more one-sided than that. Bunny Hopper's decks are extremely aggressive, and Lion King has very anti-combo, anti-control decks, which will not serve him well in this matchup.
That's right. We have Mid-Range Hunter, Miracle Rogue, Odd Secret Mage, and Even Paladin for Bunny Hopper. That's Dr. Bunny Hopper to you guys, who, for people who haven't heard, he has finished his PhD recently, is now focused on Hearthstone competing mainly, and seeing where it goes from there. And Lion King, he's playing Clone Priest, Quest Rogue, Even Warlock, and Death Rattle Hunter. Of course, the Death Rattle Hunter is banned because that is one of the better decks against the aggressive strategies, at least from Lion King's perspective.
And it's worth noting, too, that Lion King is playing even more biased versions of these decks against other control and combo decks. For instance, his version of the Cloning Gallery Priest has Vivid Nightmare and only a single copy of Eternal Servitude, which is the sort of thing where, okay, well, maybe at least I can get an early Velen and then res it. And, well, he's not going to be doing that as often as other versions can. Similarly, his Even Warlock has Mojo Master and Nerubian Unraveler. Those are terrible cards to draw against an aggressive opponent.
Yep. So this one looks pretty bad. It's about a 70% favorite, like Bunny Hopper mentioned. And we'll see if Quest Rogue can even get a win, let alone if Lion King can take this series. We actually cast the first match of today, and it was very similar, where Noblord was queuing up Quest Rogue repeatedly, just couldn't get over the hump. Way too much aggression coming out from Viper. And it doesn't surprise me that Bunny Hopper and Viper come with similar strategies, both the only players to bring Odd Secret Mage, and generally have the same alignment to be aggressive.
Yeah, they interestingly had very similar lineups at the championship they previously attended. I believe for that event they actually practiced together. This event they did not, to my knowledge, and they still came to very similar conclusions due to having, I assume, similar influence among people who they talk to and practice with.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes a lot of sense. Even Paladin versus Quest Rogue. This is kind of in the middle of the road in terms of the matchup spread for Quest Rogue. Like, it has worse matchups like the Odd Secret Mage, but it has better matchups than this one too. Well, it all kind of depends on Bunny Hopper's start, because Even Paladin is really powerful if you don't remove their early game minions, and Quest Rogue takes a long time to get set up.
Though one of the cards that can get you set up much faster is Sonya Shadow Dancer, and that is the first draw for Lion King. So he doesn't have a charger to go with it, like a Deckhand or a Boar, but it is one of the key elements to his deck being able to actually start going fast enough to deal with a deck like Even Paladin.
For Bunny Hopper, his power spike looks to be his 4-mana cards. He has Corpse Taker and the Glass Knight, both minions that are very difficult to remove and have a lot of power to keep punching repeatedly. Wonder what Bunny Hopper is really thinking. Oh wait, no, it's just him.
It's
People
Bunny
who are
Hopper.
not familiar.
This is Bunny Hopper.
Bunny Hopper is notorious for winning a lot, but also being extremely meticulous about utilizing his turn.
I actually just had the realization that we're going to be sitting down for a Bunny Hopper match, and I didn't get any caffeine beforehand, so I may need some help from backstage if anyone can fetch me some energy. But Bunny Hopper here, he does obviously get his Recruit Dagger down. He has the Pyromancer, which is not something you necessarily are looking to tempo out or anything, especially if you're looking to coin out a Corpse Taker the following turn.
Right.
But his other option is the Argent Protector, which is no tremendous turn 2 play either.
Yeah, taking a look at Bunny Hopper's deck list, he does have one copy of Equality. We've seen some Even Paladins put Equality in and out ever since its nerf to 4 mana. It has been a pretty big detriment to its board clearing abilities, but not the biggest of deals. They end up, putting a little bit more tech in, or perhaps just a little bit more early game, like an extra 2-drop or so.
Does decide it is the Pyromancer he'd like to play. This could indicate that he's not really looking to use coin next turn if this goes uncontested, because he can just give it Divine Shield with his Argent Protector and develop an additional 1/1 from his hero power.
Yep. Lion King picks up a second Glacial Shard, so that becomes a likelier candidate for him to want to use the bounce effects or Sonya, except they don't have the charge ability, so you need a turn to get set up. Doesn't feel that reliable, but, you know, Zola helps add to that case. If you're able to Glacial Shard Zola next turn, and then set up Shadow Shadow Dancer, get both of them back.
And this dagger attack is actually somewhat important because Bunny Hopper does have the coin. If he did coin out a Corpse Taker here, which would eliminate Lion King's board, that would leave him with a Pyromancer if Lion King didn't have the dagger attack in. So definitely a heads-up play from the Chinese player.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's not the biggest of deals. Pyromancer already did 3 damage anyways because the rogue attacked into it. It's just so that it doesn't become problematic for a coin Blessing of Kings. I think that'd be like the ultimate punish. But coin Corpse Taker here still looks very good to me. So if you're Lion King here, if you have the Glacier Shard and the Zola, that's 3 that you have guaranteed. If you're able to trade both of them with Sonya Shadow Dancer, that's 5. So that it would be Lion King's quest completion if he's able to pull this off. But Bunny Hopper has that consecration ready. So I think that would be wishful thinking, to say the least. However, it's a bad matchup. Maybe Lion King has to take that risk.
All right, well, it will be another Glacial Shard coming down, and that is 2 on the quest. Going to look to complete there. And Glacial Shard is a good minion to be trying to complete on in this matchup because your opponent is playing a deck that plays these mid-sized minions and buff cards, so the freeze effect and getting repeated use out of it is quite powerful. One of the interesting things here is Bunny Hopper has that Consecration, which he kept in his opening hand. That's actually something you don't often see. Consecration is usually thought to be a card which is particularly powerful against, say, a deck like Zoo, but it is a recognition of this kind of game state coming up where, okay, I need to keep you off of being able to have minions that you can potentially get Sonya down to get additional plays from. Also, if anyone is worried about me, production did bring me some caffeine.
Yes, that's right. We can all rejoice in peace. The Consecration still looks pretty important to shut down that possibility of Sonya, but if Bunny Hopper chooses to play the Glass Knight, Lion King is going to go for a pretty big punish here. And that might already be the tides turning in this series. Now, the thing is, if Bunny Hopper did go for the Consecration, wow, what a draw.
That's actually a really big deal because it allows Lion King to kill this Corpse Taker, get additional copies from his minions, and reset the Sonya.
Right, Shadow Step the
He
Sonya.
can dagger here, Sonya attack both, or attack both in, or rather dagger attack. It doesn't really matter the order, and then Shadow Step the Sonya. He doesn't have chargers though. He doesn't have rushers, so he has no way to really take advantage of the Sonya like you can with South Sea Deckhand. But it's still a very powerful situation that sets him up for future turns. And he's already at 3, I believe. This is the third. This is the third shard in his hand, and it will give him the fuel to reset. He may not even need to Shadow Step, is the thing. He may actually want to save the Shadow Step to reset with something else, because this Sonya, without, he already has the tools to reset, right? So it's possible that it's not worth using the Shadow Step here on the Sonya, because he would have to, in order for the Sonya to be powerful. Yeah, I kind of like this. As long as he does use the Shadow Step, yes, on something. This does leave him in a somewhat a weird position if he does get Consecrationed, because he didn't actually clear off the Corpse Taker. But he does still have the completion of the quest from that Bounce Glacial Shard.
Well, Bunny Hopper got punished by that scenario, and to his credit, it was like the only card that could really punish him is the Sonya Shadow Dancer, versus him wanting to develop is a much more proactive plan that generally fares better against the plays that Lion King would have on average. So it's not like Lion King has the Sonya every single game, so more often than not, he can make that play. But, if he has the hard read that he has a Sonya Shadow Dancer, obviously he wants to eliminate that possibility. Now, the quest is completed next turn.
Yeah.
This is very problematic for Bunny Hopper. However, Lion King needs a little bit more resources because he will get outvalued.
It is also crucially completed on this. The glacial shards have been such a huge deal in keeping Bunny Hopper sort of contained. Otherwise, this Corpse Digger's been in play for several turns now.
Right.
And there's a King's in hand. If that had been frozen multiple times, it's just been a lot of damage to Lion King's face. And now look at this. We're seeing that Wax Elemental come down, and Zola on the Wax Elemental. It looks like.
Yeah.
That is just so much that Bunny Hopper needs to fight through.
Such a perfect specimen.
So Bunny Hopper now has a couple of choices, but the Spiker Steed is the first thing that I gravitated towards because you had the Divine Shield on the Glass Knight. Your opponent is holding one card with the Wax Elemental number 2 that from the Zola was created. And I think the number one thing that you're concerned about ultimately is what if my opponent has like some kind of vanish to deal with the Spiker Steed, but it's like your opponent loses a little bit of ground too. I guess they do create a little bit of resources in the process, so it wouldn't be the biggest of deals. Other than that, do you see any other play that you'd like besides the Spiker Steed?
I mean, I don't really like any play here. I mean, Spiker Steed is fine. It at least helps mitigate some amount of damage that you'd be taking, but it's not actually making inroads in your opponent's board. I mean, I think that frankly, Bunny Hopper's in a terrible position here.
Yeah. All right, well, Lion picked up another Wax Elemental.
Yeah, big Waxy, left and right.
Big Waxy. 2-star Waxy. I think Lion King has the Ziliax also, but this is a lot to chew through stats-wise. Giving up a lot.
Yeah. You are, but you every single minion you draw is a 4/4, and your opponent has nothing on board.
True. For now. I mean, I'm thinking that if Lion King doesn't pick up more resource generation,
it is theoretically possible that Bunny Hopper, gets to, say King's this, kill the Ziliax, but then he just loses his minion to the Divine Shield of the Wax Elemental.
Well, it could pick up the Auto Defense Matrix, or he can Divine Shield beforehand.
Sure.
To keep it as a 6/6.
Sure.
Let me think.
Yeah, that is true. If he does play the Blessed of Kings plus the Argent Protector, that's that guy. He can kill it, not give any life to Lion King as well, which is fairly crucial because he does need to actually end the game before Lion King finds an Elven Minstrel in particular. Which is, of course, the main reason that Lion King kept that Wax Elemental in his hand. He wants to ensure that he does retain combo if he does pick up an Elven Minstrel to reload.
Reporting for duty.
That stings. Lion King would have loved to have that extra life.
All right, Novice
is
Engineer,
good.
that's a great draw. And
that's a good
Vicious
draw,
Scale Hide,
too.
that's some extra life. And now Lion King actually has the full clear. Use the Scale Hide and the Dagger to take down both of Bunny Hopper's remaining minions if he chooses.
Yeah. Tyrion comes down this turn from Bunny Hopper, and that requires 2 minions to answer it. Big thing is that Lion King's gaining back life with that Vicious Scale Hide.
Right. And now Lion King back to 22. And the window that Bunny Hopper has to try and out-resource him is definitely closing. Tyrion here is at least reasonably powerful, because if it does die, he still gets the weapon, and he potentially try and reload behind that if Lion King, for instance, draws Preparation this turn. That may be a window that Bunny Hopper has to get back into the game.
Sure.
But that window is very small because Lion King has lots of draws that really just put things away.
He does, but as the game progresses, Bunny Hopper has a way to answer a big wide board too, so if Lion King gets kind of reckless, he could be walking into an equality scenario. Mimic Pod is good.
Mimic Pod is a serious card for Lion King. You see Preparation, though. We were talking about how that is air. That is Mimic Pod into double air. So that is exactly what Bunny Hopper needed was for Lion King to brick this turn. He needed him to hit nothing of value this turn, and that's exactly what happened.
Ouch.
And he's going to have a pretty strong read on what that card is when Lion King doesn't play it this turn.
Oh, man. You got to feel bad for Lion King based off that. It was like the one card he didn't need, and that was the one you were calling out. You're like, yes, I guess if he draws Preparation.
I mean, this is still not a disaster situation just yet, because there is that Wax Elemental that he'd been previously holding for combo. Obviously, these preparations, that's what they're good for, is enabling combo.
All right, well, back to the drawing board, I suppose.
I mean, Bunnyhopper can Consecration here to clear off the shield, play a Chain Gang and Hero Power, kill the Wax Elemental with the weapon. That at least gives, gets rid of the Divine Shielded minion, gets a minion, 2 minions on board, so he has a likely target to attack with the Blessing of Kings the following turn. Different direction, though. Decides to Hydrologist.
Yeah, it could be Bunnyhopper looking for a specific secret to help him out in this scenario. Auto Defense Matrix works really well with Serenite Chain Gang. Hidden Wisdom, interesting. So Bunnyhopper says, you know what, my hand doesn't look very good. Maybe I need to trick my opponent into playing multiple cards per turn, and then I can use Hidden Wisdom in order to draw and keep up my resources. And in the meantime, Lion King is going to treat this as if it is Auto Defense Matrix or Noble Sacrifice. And he's going to be very cautious with how he attacks.
Reporting for duty.
Lab Recruiter. Well, that's not bad. It's at least a minion, and he can get additional copies of Novice Engineer, which obviously is a fantastic card for him to draw at any point because it represents additional resources and board presence.
Man, what is the play long-term for Lion King here? I mean, what is he even shuffling to his deck? Is he shuffling Novice Engineer? Is he shuffling a Wax Elemental?
I think it's got to be Novice, because if he just draws Wax Elementals, he theoretically loses. If he just draws a Wax Elemental every turn, he's not actually generating very much compared to Bunnyhopper's weapon and hero power. He's actually falling behind.
That makes sense.
At least in the near future. So I would expect that if he Lab Recruiters this turn, and I think he needs to just for board presence, that it would be on the Novice Engineer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Novice Engineer has the ability to keep chain to itself. Attacks first for the Auto Defense Matrix and Noble Sacrifice.
And interestingly, that does just get 2 damage in. The fact that Bunnyhopper played a secret here actually mattered quite a bit in terms of simply generating.
It's as if it is a Noble Sacrifice.
Right.
He got 2 secrets in 1.
And now, I think from Bunnyhopper's perspective, he's got to be able to identify that card in hand as preparation. Ooh, Val in the air. That's not the best of draws given the circumstances, considering he has the Ashspring already.
Right, that's true. But this turn, he doesn't have to play the Valenier. He has the Consecration and the Blessing of Kings and the Avenging Wrath as options at this point. If you Consecration first, Avenging Wrath has a pretty decent chance of just clearing the board based off of your combination of your weapon, your minion attack, and everything else, and then you can push damage.
I mean, there's the option he could Consecration Blessing of Kings, and swing into one of these with trade his 2/2 and send the 5/5 to face, or just not worry about killing everything. Just attack through with the 2/2, Blessing of Kings your 5/5, send 9 to face, put Lion King down to 7 when you have Avenging Wrath in hand.
I like that.
Yeah, that's the play I like right now.
I like the sound of that.
So this is just getting a lot of damage into face. You still have this weapon, you still have this Avenging Wrath. That puts Lion King basically on having to find something really good this turn.
Yep, Vanish isn't good enough.
Shadow Step is not either. I think that's just it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything Lion can do about this. He's staring at lethal on board, doesn't have the cards to do it, and he just continually kept whiffing. Quest Rogue looked like it had an opportunity to do it.
And Bunnyhopper, he's always a very stoic player. We saw him let out, it looked like a sigh of relief right there, because that was a game that looked like it was very much going against him. There was a very fast quest completion from Lion King, and Bunnyhopper, didn't have the best draw, but the 1-turn brick into kind of a 2-turn brick from Lion King there when it was the Mimic Pod into preparation, then the Lab Recruiter when he really needed something powerful just was not enough.
Yeah, Quest Rogue struggled to say the least, and that's why you don't give up until the game is 100% over. So that's going to be the first game in the books here, as Lion King will have to go back to the drawing board, but that was definitely a heartbreaker if you're a Lion King fan. So we're just getting started here with this best of 5 with game number 1. Don't go anywhere. More action continues right after this break.
这次来参赛的所有的选手都是从国内最顶尖的比赛当中选拔出来的，
比以往都要厉害一点吧。算了一下，可能是他败者组出现，然后其实我已经准备1天多了。他应该能算到一个大哥的角色，就一个5，但是那个3可能没有算到。
我就希望我每一手不要打错，然后排序正常，这样子的话，我觉得就没有任何问题。打比赛的时候，我会尽量让自己放松，然后把这个比赛就是当成一个就是天梯。
不知道为什么打得这么惨，太紧张了。虽然野猪木玩过很多场，但是这么紧张还是容易导致失误。比赛的状态真的是非常的重要，主要还是心态上特别的紧张吧。因为8进4，我特别的想回 HCT 复仇，然后就这种心情过于激动，然后导致了比赛太过紧张。
他如果排序不是特别好的话，我认为快攻还是非常容易在这个上面就是冲死他的。
对面是个回血能力比较弱的模块树，然后当时我因为没有 DK， 所以我只能去抢他的脸，才能有机会打死他。
我有21血，所以是绝对不死的，除非他有 DK 可以回血缓过来，但是并不会有太好的转机，所以我选择了全部打脸。
这次没有拿到冠军，还是有点可惜，可能就是这次我有些对局的理解不够深，才输掉决赛。
得到了这个成绩，也是对我5年以来一直努力打炉石的肯定，以及对我未来继续坚持炉石的鼓励。
炉石这个游戏带给了我很多不一样的乐趣，然后还让我认识了不少的朋友，跟我算是一个缘分吧，让我正好碰到了他，我觉得还是蛮感谢的。
我希望的就是以后能够继续的努力，改正自己的心态。我希望这些批评能够化为我今后努力的动力，然后我以后会用实力证明我自己。
Bunny Hopper's currently up 1-0. He is the favorite of the event, according to many people, statistician, fans, pros who evaluate the groups. But will it come to reality? We all look at the numbers, we all go by our experiences and anecdotes, but only the results can speak for themselves in terms of who is going to advance today. Lion King I feel for him. I feel like that was his breakthrough moment, and now that he lost game 1, it almost feels like he's down 0-2 already.
It does, because that game must have felt like it was within his grasp.
Yeah.
He knew he had a really difficult matchup coming in, and once he got that quest online so quickly, he still had a lot of life left to work with. You know, you've got to be feeling, all right, I've got this. You know, I'm going to win. And then to have everything fall apart toward the end there must be pretty crushing for him.
Yeah, no doubt.
But Lion King is a player who is very much known for his determination, his persistence. He was a player who I believe made 6 Gold Series final performances. I'm not really sure exactly
top,
what
top stage.
Yeah, final stage. He made the final stage of Gold Series, I think, 6 times as an uninvited player. He had to play through the open bracket so many times, and now he has made multiple championship appearances. You know, after that run, and you know, he is certainly not one who gives up at any opposition.
Yeah, a lot of the players have kind of come and gone over the years. Lion King's a player that kind of kept proving himself through consistency. You know, it reminds me a lot of what Muzzy had to do for a few years leading up to 2017 when he eventually made his first World Championship appearance. People were just like, yeah, I know Muzzy's a really good player, top ladder finisher, but how come we don't really see him that much? It's because he wasn't really getting invited to a lot of those tournaments. He was proving himself grinding all those open cups and ladders, and now there's no one that questions whenever he gets invited to a tournament. Same is kind of being said about Lion King, but over in China.
Yeah, and now this was another pretty tough matchup. He's got his even Warlock up against the mid-range Hunter for Bunny Hopper. We haven't seen mid-range Hunter much in this tournament so far, but that's because it has very frequently been banned.
Right.
And Lion King, however, is allowing Bunny Hopper to play this in this matchup.
Yeah, rightfully so, too, because mid-range Hunter is a very flexible deck. It has it all. You know, part of what made mid-range Hunter so good in the past was because it had Starving Buzzard and Unleash the Hounds for card draw. It had a lot of huge burst with Kill Command and Leroy. It had great early game curve. It had good late game opportunity. And that's very much the same of how it is now. It doesn't need Emerald Spellstone in order to have that powerful mid-game punch, because it still can rely on good solid curves through Dire Maul, Crackling Razor Maul, Animal Companion, and then have top end with Tundra Rhino and a bunch of Scavenging Hyenas for maximum burst.
And Master's Call is really just the glue that holds it all together, because it lets you play that much early game and not really just worry in the mid game, oh, well, I just drew all my early game and I ran out of stuff. With Master's Call, you know, you end up either, well, you do your early game early, okay, well, you know, now you just get your mid game and late game out of your deck. Oh, I drew, you know, all of my late game, okay, well, I can at least gut my deck of all of these expensive cards, or rather the low cheap cards with a single draw.
All right.
SM Orc.
He's got the blessing. He's got the Huffer on turn 2, and that was a decision that took a while. I was kind of thinking Crackling Razor Maul was a foregone conclusion. Bunny Hopper, what is he really trying to accomplish? Is it just because he wanted that Huffer? He wanted that pressure this fast?
Well, I think that any of the Animal Companions is pretty good pressure there. And then a Crackling Razor Maw on a larger minion is just much more powerful. If he Crackling Razor Maws this Dire Maul, say he gets a weak set of options, it's not really that exciting.
Sure.
Whereas, you know, say he hits Misha. Okay, well now, you know, any plus health gets a 4/4 out of range of Spellstone.
Right.
You know, any Wind Fury, obviously much more powerful in those. So the adapt power is magnified on larger minions. So I think that was a lot of the thought process going into that for Bunny there.
I like it. And it ends up paying off pretty handsomely. Now look at Lion King's act of desperation, playing a Sun Fury Protector. And that is...
got me a 2/3.
I mean, that's perfect for Bunny Hopper of how he wants to deal with it. He has the Spring Paw and the Candle Shot. He has the Crackling Razor Maul and any combination of one source of damage.
Man, this is an interesting spot, actually, because if he does decide to use the Razor Maw here, you know, he runs the risk of missing. You know, if he does say he Razor Maws the Dire Maul and gets all defensive options, nothing that actually gives poisonous or any kind of plus attack, then he's not necessarily in a great spot.
Right, and almost anything he does walks into Hellfire. Even this is +3 health.
+3 attack. Get him!
I like it.
He's got to be a little worried if he does +3 attack here, because that is 7 damage, and that does put your opponent immediately into range to play a Hooked Reaver, and you don't have a way to deal with Hooked Reaver right now. That said, you're certainly not +3 attacking and then trading.
Yeah.
Or not attacking phase, because your opponent's just going to trade. So it's just a matter of what are we going to see. All right, well, This is the philosophy of, well, you make them have it.
Yeah, and even if he had it, it's not like you're completely hopeless. Right. You still have Master's Call and Flanking Strike to back it up on the following turn. Whew, this Hellfire hurts a lot. So you might end up just using the Spellstone as just the just as it is right now.
Yeah, I think he's going to go for Hellfire here because he wants to upgrade the Spellstone. He wants to have Spellstone for 5 to something, you know, the next thing that comes down.
Yeah, that's true. It hurts so bad. You're down single digits. And now Bunny Hopper has the ability to either redevelop minions or go for that Master's Call. One thing that is interesting is I actually looked up the card data for Master's Call, and one of its highest win rates is actually just played straight up on curve.
Yeah.
When you play Midrange Hunter, you actually anticipate it wanting to curve out with minions, but you know, in a lot of matchups, Midrange Hunter is about exploding its mid game.
Yes, and one of the things that's important about Midrange Hunter is it's actually a deck that's very synergy-driven. Things like the Spring Paw and the Hyena and the Crackling Razor Maw and Tundra Rhino, all of these pieces fit together, and they're so much better when you draw them all. And Master's Call helps you fit all those pieces together and actually manifest your synergies rather than just kind of hoping that they come out at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very surprised at how much of a significant win rate. Because then after that, it drops off a little bit because I think you're coming up on your power turns. So turns 5, 6, 7, you want to hit like, you know, your high mains. You want to hit like the big flanking strike swing turns. And then again in the late game, Master Call's win percentage spikes up again because you fill up your mana curve. So it's just one of those things where, you know, don't be afraid to pull a trigger on Master's Call to get that value if the situation calls for it.
But do be afraid of a Hyena on the opposing side because that thing you got a hand, and Lion King, you know, wastes no time, snaps off the Spellstone to keep himself afloat.
Yeah, in this position, Bunny Hopper has 2 choices: the Master Call or the tracking. Master's Call ends up working sometimes against tracking. Like, tracking can pick up the beast that you want to pull anyways. So this could be one of the situations where Bunny Hopper wants to draw with Master's Call first, even though tracking might be more efficient for his tempo, because he can develop stronger minions with 4 mana as opposed to 2. That being said, he drew the high main. That is a nice draw from Bunny Hopper.
Yeah, the high main gives him an excellent power play next turn, and even just you know, another Hyena here. You know, a lot of players will hold their Hyena until they can get trades, and they're like, okay, I want to ensure my opponent can't easily kill it. Just make him have it, and that's what Bunny Hopper has done every turn so far here. And we see the Defile draw that may look good, but it's important to note that Hyena has text, and when that Defile goes off, that Hyena is going to eat the bones of those poor remaining little beasts there and get out of range of the additional tick. So that's the way to get yourself dead.
Yeah, I have made lots of mistakes playing Scavenging
Hyena. Hyena is just such an incredibly powerful card in the current Hunter decks, and that is driven almost entirely by the strength of Spring Paw. And not only the strength of Spring Paw, but the strength of Spring Paw alongside Master's Call, ensuring you have so much access to it that you just can totally run away with games, but with a huge Hyena very early on. And also just, obviously, opponents not quite realizing. They just look at a board. Oh, 1-2, great. I'll Defile it. Oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, this is rough.
Yeah, and here, you know, Lion King's like, okay, well, I have to do something to protect myself. But playing to the board when the Hyena in play and other... Oh, my God. Is that just going to be lethal? It might be.
Yeah. Hold on. So Timberwolf plus this right now is 5 plus 3, so 8, 10.
And then plus 4 more.
Plus 4.
Oh, it's all. Oh no, it is lethal, right?
Yeah, because you hero power.
The Timberwolf plus the Spring Paw Lynx that's plus another 4 from there. So it's, the board gets 4, 3, 4, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
No,
so it's 13,
which is just off, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, you 4, 3, 4, then hero power. Is that
no? 4, 3, 4 is
4 plus
11.
3 plus another 4. Right, 11. Or right, 13. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is just shy of lethal. So
well, could he get another tracking for lethal?
He runs out of mana. He has no other.
Yeah.
He could tracking and get another Timberwolf.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If he trackings here and gets the second Timberwolf, that is just lethal.
There's 14 cards remaining.
Oh no, it's not. There's not enough mana. Never mind.
Right, because he can't hero power at that point.
But this is still, okay, well, I'll clear off, your board and do, just shy of lethal damage to you. 11 to the face, plus 2 more from the steady shot.
Very
All right,
close.
good luck.
Even Warlock looks like it's toasty toast here. Nothing to do.
Life tap, that's all you can do is say, all right, well, I'm dead, but you didn't get the killing blow, and now Bunny Hopper, 2-0 lead over Lion King. Really, really dominant performance so far.
Yeah, but I mean, this is kind of the expected result that we were anticipating, largely because, you know, Bunny Hopper said it in his piece. He knows Lion King likes to play anti-control. He likes to be greedy, likes to punish them with really powerful mid-range or combo decks. And that's not what Bunny Hopper brought. He brought this aggressive strategy and shows his flexibility as a player. Because, you know, last time in the Winter Championship, he was bringing in a control lineup. You know, that big spell mage and the Shutterwalk mirror that would lasted for like 5 hours against Viper.
Yeah, Bunny Hopper had a lot of anti-control style decks in his previous appearance that, you know, would go up against potentially a greedier lineup and maybe run into some trouble. But here, you know, Lion King's the one who's going greedy, and Bunny Hopper's like, all right, well, I'm just going to beat you up.
Yeah, the good old beat-em-up strategy is still very good in Hearthstone, even though everyone has felt like aggro has lost a step or two. It's still very strong and very robust.
It's always when people think aggro is dead that aggro is you know, on the verge of a resurgence. You know, it is when people stop playing decks to beat stuff like Scavenger Hyena or the raiding party into Shadowblade into Dread Corsair that you just hit them in the face and they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the last deck remaining here from Bunny Hopper is still going to be very strong up against all of what Lion King does. I'm not really sure exactly what Lion King is choosing to do because he's switching decks too, and that's something that you know, you kind of have your pick of the litter, but almost all the decks that he's going to go up against, he can struggle.
Yeah, I mean, he has to take down. It's the rogue deck that remains. It was, in fact, Bunny Hopper's mage deck that was banned in this matchup. So it will be that that raiding party tempo aggro rogue that Bunny Hopper has remaining. And as we were saying earlier, when we were watching Faeli play in a similar circumstance, well, what do? Do you decide I want to try and play my best matchup first and sort of spend as much time on stage trying to fight back and as I can, or you say, all right, this is my worst matchup. I'm gonna have to win it anyway. I'm gonna save my mental energy for my game matches tomorrow if I lose right away.
All right, well, Bunny Hopper's up 2-0. If he wins one more, he is through to the winner's match. We'll find out what happens when we come back to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's Winter Championship.
As night falls over the HCT Winter Championship, the pressure escalates for our world-class field of players. Every match, every game, every move becomes even more crucial as the HCT Winter Championship continues.
With the developers.
Of all the cards in Hearthstone, I would say probably my favorite from an aesthetic standpoint, or certainly from an art standpoint, would be Archmage Antonidas. That one was just a perennial favorite of mine. From the very first release of the set, it was a card that meant a lot in that we hadn't seen a lot of him in World of Warcraft, but to actually get to realize him in the flesh, so to speak, in a full color version, if not for the first time, then certainly I think the most epic time, through the art of Wayne Reynolds. I ended up loving the piece so much that I ended up purchasing the original from him, and it currently hangs in my studio at home, and I love the piece.
Probably the Inquisitor. That one I actually had to double check and make sure that that was the final art because it looked like something out of a Del Toro movie.
One of my favorite looking cards from Witchwood was Blood Witch, just because it was a really well done style, and it kept this idea of both like evil and cute going on a gnome, and I'm not normally huge on gnomes.
Medivh is probably one of my favorite cards, just because he looks so jovial. He's holding his cup, he's so happy. He's just like, yeah, it's party time, let's go, let's have a good time. So I really enjoy that art.
The Cabal Shadow Priest is one of the oldest cards, but her golden animation has her like taking control of someone, and it's like a purple glow. It's just super cool to me.
One of my favorite pieces of art from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan was Cabal Crystal Runner. I've always been a fan of Draenei, and it does a really great job of conveying this sort of like frantic need to get a job done or a task done. It works really well with the theme of the set.
Countess Ashmore, just beautiful art. The full-blown piece of her is just fantastic, like her in the forest, like, is super cool.
Another piece I really enjoy a lot is actually Cobalt Librarian by Matt Dixon. There's so much going on in that piece. You know, he's a librarian, which is very serious usually. They always tell you, shh, be quiet. But he's standing there and he has this wonder in his eye and looking around at all these books and all this knowledge in front of him, and then he accidentally sets everything on fire.
Rain and fire, the only things a real troll desire. Put the smash into mash into bash and maybe mangle. Here it's strangle. Thorn, you'll be warned, my low's gonna trash ya. Say your prayers with voodoo, bashi bashi. Time for fun, we're gonna run ya through. Too bad for you.
It's only once a generation. One victor wins the confrontation. Standing here, got no fear. I'm the best in the arena.
Man, you never seen a hero cut you down to zero.
Victory is no joke. Careful at your door.
Cloak.
Get your stars. Our star is born. Here in Stranglehold.
Bunny Hopper currently leads 2-0, one game away from joining fellow German Viper in the 3-0 club, because apparently that is a very open membership today, as we have several players who have swept their way through, and Bunny Hopper could be joining them. Given that Lion King, he already kind of said, you know what, Bunny Hopper is my toughest matchup. I think that the first match won't go my way, but the other matches in the group is probably where Lion King will try his hand. But we don't want to give up just yet either. You know, it's still you know, possible that this Tempo Rogue, this Pirate Rogue, this whatever you want to call it, could fall flat and that he's able to 3-0 it, but it's very difficult because he still has decks like Quest Rogue, which is very vulnerable to that kind of strategy.
Lion King will be playing his Warlock deck this game, but as we noted earlier, this is a Warlock deck that, you know, is a little bit teched for the control matchups, for the combo matchups. He doesn't even have Doomsayer in this deck. He has Mojo Master Zihi, he has Nerubian Unraveler, he has Black Knight. He has a lot of cards that are just poor in a matchup against an efficient, aggressive deck. And you know, he's going to be in a rough spot if he draws that part of his deck in this matchup.
All right, well, without those Doomsayers, and I mean, he at least has like the
He has Plated Beetle. He has one Plated Beetle. He has one Acidic Swamp.
Yeah, and we've seen the Sunfury Protectors kind of rotate in and out a lot of times, and I like that. You know, he has that Mojo Master Zihi as a nod to the slower control decks combo deck that might be in his group. So that ends up working out better overall, but for this matchup, it is painful to say the least. Bunny Hopper having a pretty good opening hand. I mean, he's got Firefly, he's got Card Draw, he's got Valdori Strider. He's one Henge Clan Thug, and he will be firing on all fronts.
All right, well, we do see the Firefly can be played again. Looks like we got a little bit of a display issue here.
Maybe Firefly will light up the board.
Yeah, maybe.
Or it's a new camera setting for Hearthstone.
Night mode.
Night mode, so that way you can just stay up on your bed, stay up late in the bed playing Hearthstone.
Firefly has stealth. He's been buffed. We didn't see the Gen result either.
He life tapped.
Ooh, all right.
So we're now casting for the blind.
All right. Can only tell what happens via sounds. Thankfully,
right.
I played a lot of Hearthstone, and I know these sounds.
I play Hearthstone muted a lot because I don't want people at work to know that I'm playing Hearthstone during the meetings.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right,
All
and
right.
you know, we do see that that draw from Lion King from that life tap. which
was
we
the
heard
Unraveler.
was that Unraveler, which, you know, again, is a very poor card overall in this matchup.
Yes. Bunny Hopper going for the attack. Nope. Okay. Yeah, he obviously save the attack in case he draws Henge Clan Thug. This was kind of something that we were talking about the previous series that Pilgrim and I casted with Jing. Being able to squeeze in that 1 extra damage to the Rogue. Against Even Warlock, it is a little bit suspect at times, though, because you might help them get to that 15 threshold just fast enough.
There's the Thug.
Yeah, and Bunny Hopper is
finds
rewarded.
It, so gonna get paid off for saving that charge in the dagger. But Lion King does also get a little bit paid off there because he has the Spellstone in his hand, so he can potentially just coin out Spellstone and kill that Thug.
So many options.
Bunny Hopper, though, will certainly take his time, as always.
Yeah, I mean, Henge Clan Thug here is the play. If Eldora Strider seems like the logical turn 4 play, he does have the option of trying to find a way to squeeze in Raiding Party as the game goes on, but with Rogue, you are a class that likes to put minions onto the board first, and then use things like card draw and sap and big burst damage to wrap up the game. Because Rogue's tools are so powerful to gain the immediate tempo. You don't want to do it just as a 1-for-1. Oh, a Hellfire, number 2.
I think Hellfire is obviously not what he's looking to do this turn, since he does have that Spellstone. Though there is, interestingly, he could coin attack Hellfire, and then he does have a fully upgraded Spellstone,
right?
Which can then take down the Feldori Strider. If he does coin, if he coins the Spellstone now and eats the Firefly here, he's still in a reasonable spot, and he has the 2/2 in play, and then can then potentially use the Hellfire the following turn.
Yeah, do you think it's too greedy to try and hold the coin for his 6 drops, though, or something? Because it just feels like if he coins out the Spellstone, he's still not in a good position the following turn.
It's true that he ends up in a bit of an awkward spot.
It's just like, you don't have a really good play afterwards. I totally understand. This is a very rational play, and honestly, I want to do that too. It's just one of those things where I worry about the future, you know?
I do too, man. I do too.
Yeah, you wake up, it's like, you know, don't know what's going to happen. And in this situation, the next turn, you might realistically just be stranded and alone forever.
Feels bad, man.
In the dark. But at least there's Hearthstone Night Mode.
Bunny Hopper looks to, be, again, taking his time, but yeah, will be the Feldori Strider that comes down this turn. And Lion King does have the answer. Yeah. He can trade Hellfire if he so chooses.
No attack here, which is definitely something to think about. Like, Bunny Hopper doesn't actually have a direct, obvious play for turn 5, so he could have spent his turn hitting the Vulgar Homunculus and then hitting it again the following turn. That being said, I mean, he's leaving his options flexible in case he doesn't necessarily want to spend his mana redaggering the next turn and might need it. You know, say for example, he picked up Captain Greenskin. You know, he wants to actually punch through it. Now, Lion King has to again debate if he wants to Hellfire here, and I think he does. Not the greatest use of it, but hey, this is definitely one of those matches where you do not want a single thing to stick.
Ooh, okay. So
that's really good.
Prep Raiding Party here has got to be pretty attractive. Gives Bunny Hopper a bunch of resources, guaranteed 2 minions in the Shadow Blade.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and in the best case scenario, you might be able to play both those minions if you get like Dread Corsairs
and you have seen the Hellfire here, so
that's right.
He doesn't know that there is another one waiting in the hand.
Ooh, play all those cards. Shadowblade will discount the Dread Corsair to a 1 mana cost minion, and then you can play South Sea Deckhand. But just because you can doesn't mean you want to. You probably want to avoid situations where your opponent can punish you. But on 5 mana, there's not that much that Lion King can do.
Yeah, and you also have the Myras remaining in your hand, so if your opponent does answer this, you've got to feel, okay, well, I'm in a pretty good spot where I have great tools to follow these things up. He did see the... Oh, all right. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and play...
Makes him a little bit more resilient to things like Defile. Lion King. Ugh, nothing good.
Tap Hellfire.
Hellfire again, but then he goes down to 19. He's still not even within the range of the Hooked Reaver.
Ooh.
That's a good draw.
It is a good draw.
It's a good draw, too, because Bunny Hopper hits him down to 16.
Right.
So Lion King, if he had a Hooked Reaver, couldn't play a 2-cost minion with it.
Right. He can still tap into it, assuming that he swings. But then you have, it's like, okay, well, you tap into Hooked Reaver. That means that you get the Hooked Reaver sapped.
Right.
And you're at 14 life. You connect for a bunch more damage, including the deckhand. And then you still have the Myras remaining that can potentially find you Eviscerates to close out the game.
Yeah, we saw exactly that. Although, kind of wondering if Bunny Hopper even cares about the Hooked Reaver coming down. Like, if I were him, I'd even consider just hitting anyways.
Oh yeah, for sure. You definitely want to swing. You definitely just want to get him. And like Hooked Reaver, particularly given the saps in hand, Hooked Reaver is not a scary proposition.
Right.
And the worst case scenario is what? Defile Hooked Reaver.
Yeah.
And that just kills your 1 health guy who already got to attack. And there actually isn't a Hooked Reaver, which makes the situation even more dire for Lion King.
Look at the tech cards: Moja Master Z, Nerubian Raveler, Black Knight.
Yeah, we are seeing Lion King really end up punished for his specific not only deck choices but card choices within the deck.
Yeah, they just need like Skulking Geist, and then you have all of the Avengers assembled. That's pretty much it.
With our power combined, we create Captain Combo Hate.
With our powers combined, we too can go 0-3.
Ooh, too soon. He's not dead yet. Well, yes, he is, but
not yet, but pretty close. This is, especially because he's playing a 3-health minion, this is as bad as it gets because Bunny Hopper has a backstab Myers now.
Ooh, or Van Cleef.
Well, Van Cleef is good for the following turn as well. The only problem is that, don't have enough mana to do everything. So Van Cleef comes out as a 4-4 or 6-6, and you don't want to stab that.
You can just, backstab, stab, play your Van Cleef. Maybe it is better to just Myras here. You also just have three spiders in your deck, so
it's true.
You're likely to create an additional board with the Myras as well.
I'm trying to look for what are the cards that he can play even right now, and there's not many, to be honest. He already had Draw, Nostalgia, Deckhand, and Firefly, so it's like Deadly Poison and Eviscerate. That's like what he can utilize with the remaining mana here. I mean, he might pick up a second copy of some of those other cards. Looks like he might even be favoring what you were doing, because if he plays Van Cleef now and pushes 3 damage, his opponent goes down to 11 with 8 showing for him, which means that he can Myros for the lethal the following turn.
Yeah.
So I like that setup. And again, it's turn 7. This is the last turn that Lion King will have before he starts hitting power turn after power turn. And he's got nothing. He has got nothing. Nada. Zilch.
Maybe you can life tap into, the Skulking Geist. It's not attack. But yeah, Lion King, he's gonna dig, but like you said, there's really nothing there. Spellbreaker can reduce the damage of that Van Cleef, which means that at least there's not lethal on board, I guess.
Your magic shall not
But that's your big finish here. It's just not gonna cut it. Leroy doesn't even need the rest of his deck drawn by that Myras, and Bunny Hopper is going to finish off the clean sweep. 3 games to 0.
Yeah, cruising to a victory. Again, another powerful deck-building victory here for Bunny Hopper, bringing a more aggressive lineup and something that his opponent was not anticipating, because everyone's talking about how good OTK is. Everyone's talking about how good all these other decks are being played, and yet Bunny Hopper bringing some stuff that is a little bit on the newer side. A lot of people were saying that they wanted to bring more of this pirate aggressive tempo rogue, but they didn't necessarily have the courage to do so.
I think we actually look back. I believe the aggressive lineups won every single match they played today.
Did they?
I think that's correct.
Okay, wow. Well, maybe something to look forward to in terms of is the aggro going to keep this up, or is it because players were targeting each other in the very first match because they did know their opponents? We saw in the very beginning. Viper's like, I know I'm playing as Nodlord. He loves playing anti-control. He loves playing these combo decks. I'm just going to get it with Murlocs. And he did.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bunny Hopper, you know, he just decided, all right, well, similar sort of thought about Lion King. He loves those decks like Q-Block. I'm just going to run him over.
All right. Well, we have our winner, Bunny Hopper, waiting with TJ for a couple words on his victory.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm joined by Bunny Hopper, or should I say Dr. Hopper. Recently finished your PhD, and I know you just played a Hearthstone match and you won. Congratulations on that. But what have you been doing with all your free time?
Basically streaming every single day, around 10 to 5, and then practicing for tournaments like this one and Star Ladder and playoffs. Yeah, it's pretty much been my day.
You can go ahead and plug your stream if you want. I'll allow it.
Well, it's Twitch TV, and then it's my name, Bunny Hopper, just spelled out. Yeah.
Wow, creative name. But I'll ask the Hearthstone questions now. You decided to bring an aggressive lineup to the tournament, which, at least for me personally, not something that I'm used to watching you play. But obviously, it was a good choice for the metagame after seeing the decks. But what made you decide on an aggressive deck to begin with?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I like control style a little bit more, and I don't know. I usually just, also on stream, I played mostly control decks and like Malagos Rogue and stuff like that. But I've seen Lion King in a few tournaments before, and he likes to go Cube Block, Quest Rogue, that kind of stuff. And I know Bobby X also is a Quest Rogue lover. So I was expecting very anti-controller stuff, so I couldn't really bring what I wanted to bring. So I had to just go with a more aggressive line, and it seems decent versus my group.
Yeah, and it's working out well for you so far. A lot of people have you pegged as the favorite just because of your lineup alone. But you're already qualified to the World Championship, obviously. But what keeps you motivated? What keeps you playing and trying to qualify for these big events and trying to win again?
Now is the time that I can completely focus on Hearthstone. So I really just want to just try to make the best out of this, and especially perform well at the World Championship. And I don't know. I'm not about slacking off just because I can. So no, I'll just always try to do my best.
Well, it's definitely a great attitude to have, and congratulations on your victory, and good luck throughout the rest of the tournament. But let's send it back over to Dan and Kibler at the desk.
Thank you very much, TJ and Dr. Bunny Hopper. We have one more match for you guys coming up next. It's Bobby X versus Roger. But just to center it back in, I think Bunny Hopper is looking very sharp. Not just carried by his decks, but his play also was pristine. I mean, granted, it was very much in his favor, but look, bring the right decks, play well, and get rewarded. And that's kind of what we want to see in Hearthstone.
And I loved what Bunny Hopper said there, that, yeah, he's qualified for Worlds. He could just sort of rest on his laurels, but he just wants to win. He wants to come in and not, slack off at all. And he's being rewarded for that.
Yeah, he told me. He doesn't have the dream to play Hearthstone for the rest of his life, but he wants to play it full-time right now before he eventually does things with his doctorate degree going into chemistry. And so with that, Bobby X versus Roger will set the stage for the final match of day number 1. Once again, the score, Bunny Hopper 3, Lion King 0. We'll be right back with more HCT action.
Coming up, Roger versus Bobby X.
我只是觉得我带的牌组基本上算还可以，因为我自己认为就是你带的牌只要是能跟对手至少有50%，我觉得就已经算是很好的带牌。
So for Roger, he went with a similar lineup to me, but I text for aggro, and he stayed with his very greedy tech.
我觉得这个对局可能就稍微我会优势一点，因为我们基本上有3套牌都一样，然后他是德鲁伊，我是术士，那我觉得我们可能会都是，对啊，就是基本上因为我是术士，他是德鲁伊，所以我觉得就是术士打德鲁伊，我觉得稍微是优势一点，所以我大概胜率会比他高一点点吧。
So statistically, I'm not too favored against Roger, but he's not very familiar about my style of play. He's obviously been in the scene a long time, so I've had the chance to just analyze his play. It might be a little bit scary for him because it's going to be more difficult for him to just read into what I'm thinking during the match.
with the final match of the day here at the HCT Winter Championship. I'm Raven, and joining me to send off the day is Sottle, of course. Are you looking forward to this one? It's going to be Bobby X versus Roger, as you've just seen on the screen.
It is, and it's something just a little bit different in terms of the style of matchup we're going to see. We've seen a lot of series, I believe, neck on the line, every series has been a story of one very favored lineup. Like in terms of the triangle of, aggro control, anti-control on the rotation, there's always been, one of the hard favorites in each series. Whereas now we have two very similar lineups, both going with kind of an anti-control strategy. There are little differences in the exact decks that they chose to bring to execute that, though.
Yeah, and even a difference level in player, I would say, as well, because Bobby X, a relatively new name to, to the competitive scene and probably to a lot of viewers at home if you didn't manage to catch the playoffs. But Roger's a player who's had years of Hearthstone competitive experience. So not only the deck's looking a little bit similar, on the other side of that, the two players couldn't be more different, I would say.
Yeah, and I was interested in the break there, and we got a few words from Bobby X, and he was kind of trying to spin that to his advantage. He said, because of the way the decks line up, like maybe I don't quite have the advantage in the series, but I think what might work for me is that he's not familiar with my style of play and my patterns of play. And I'm just not quite sure how much I buy into that, but he's definitely, willing to play the underdog card here, it seems.
Yeah, and also something that, I don't know, it's kind of made me just like Bobby X, even though I've not had a chance to hang out with him more. We can see the deck list, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to finish my story first. But,
Shelve that!
You know what? ISO back on me. I'll take a page out of TJ's book.
No, never again.
And well, I was just going to say, when we saw his winning interview at playoffs when he qualified, and he talked a lot.
Oh, yes.
He talked a lot, and,
Yes,
and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but when we interviewed him, could we interview all the players at championships as well?
Yeah.
He talked a lot, and he has a
yeah.
lot to say, and it is, it's interesting. It's not like I'm saying he blabs around a lot, but he's he likes to talk and does it well, basically, so I'm a little bit afraid for my job right now. If this doesn't pan out for Bobby X, I'm kind of worried.
Again, pulling back the curtain, I feel like I should just be like the masked caster, secrets of casting exposed. But like, if you ramble in an interview and aren't saying anything, we'll cut you off and ask another question. But Bobby X just went on and on and on for about, I don't know, it must have been 45 seconds to a minute on one question that Admirable and myself asked him. We were just happy to let him go because he was saying interesting, engaging things. He has a lot to say about Hearthstone and is clearly very passionate about it.
Yeah, and we did see the quick breakdown of the archetypes, but let's just dive in a little bit deeper. Sol, you said there wasn't a particularly clear favorite. Expand.
I think there is a marginal favorite. I think the even lock that Roger has here is actually potentially to his benefit in this series.
Admirable will be fuming.
I know. It's a bit of a departure from what we've been talking about for what feels like several months now, where we've been painting even lock as the weak link. But as I said, they're both going for the anti-control strategy. So they both have a Death Rattle Hunter. They both have a Quest Rogue. Those are the kind of two of the best decks that you will put together for that kind of strategy. They then both have the Xerix Priest on top of that, but then they differ on the final deck, which is Malagos Druid for Bobby X, and it is Even Lock for Roger, which are two decks, again, that kind of do the same functional job in beating up slower decks, but have very, very different ways of going about it. Mali Druid kind of saves up for that huge burst combo at the end, whereas Even Lock is all just about big, explosive, consistent pressure with big minions throughout the game.
Right, and I've got a quiz question for you.
Oh, no.
No,
Pressure.
Not even lore related.
Okay.
Okay, this is like your kind of lore, I guess. What do these two decks that we're about to see now, the Druid and the Quest Rogue, have in common?
They're both Hearthstone decks. They both play 0 mana spells. They both have the letter R in the classes of the being played.
Nope. Unlike Bobby X, this is boring me now.
Okay.
I will say they've both been heavily hit by the nerf bat and still exist somehow. As we talked about Rogue a little bit earlier in the match we cast, but Druid as well has taken multiple beatings, not just in the recent ramp era of the Nourish and the Wild Growth getting nerfed, but also way back when Spreading Plague, believe it or not, used to be more powerful. I know newer players will not believe it.
I'd honestly forgotten about that.
Yep.
It never occurred to me that Spreading Plague is a card that's already been nerfed. It's like Corridor Creeper tier, right? Like the original Spreading Plague.
It's like, why is this okay? Who agreed to this? But yeah, let's get into the game. It is the Quest Rogue versus the Mali Druid. And it's kind of, as I mentioned about the nerfs, it's kind of an old-new matchup. As we've seen this happen before, but not with these two exact decks.
Right.
But how do you think it goes now as we start to see the players opening hands?
Honestly, some amount of question marks on that front. The nerf to 4/4 had one relevant interaction in this matchup, which was particularly Spreading Plague. When you have a board of 4/4s, suddenly 1/5 taunts are a lot more annoying than they used to be as to when you had 5/5s. But I'm mostly familiar with this matchup kind of in the Azalina form, where that was a huge impact on the matchup. But honestly, I think with these, how much slower Druid has got now with 3 mana Wild Growth, 6 mana Nourish, that's just a couple of free turns that Rogue gets to develop through to pressure and quest and be able to run over. And you look like you have something incredibly funny to say over there.
Maybe only I'll laugh. But when you talk about the importance, the 4/4s of Spreading Plague, all I could think was the Rusty video of, well, if you're branching past them, you can draw Swipe. And it kills them. And it wouldn't have done them as 5/5s.
Okay, no, that is quite funny.
First time for everything. Okay, though, this Tyrant can come down pretty easily here and also just kind of battle for this board, to be completely honest. The Dagger plus the Minstrel will clear it off, but if Roger wants to commit that much to it, when you might want to try and do some other turns that might not involve Dagger, because the Dagger isn't live, which means that, you know, nearly half of his mana cost for this turn would be just equipping it.
Right. Elven Minstrel going as far back as you care, really, before either of these decks were nerfed for the very first time. Elven Minstrel has always been a key card in the matchup. Yes. It's one of those matchups where you have to stay resource heavy in hand so you can transfer that resource into pressure on the Druid. If you start starving yourself of cards, suddenly, you know, Spreading Plagues can just buy too much time for the opponent and they can swing the board with some kind of big Mali blowout. If you can keep resources high, that means you're going to complete the quest quicker because you have more options to be able to do so. And that means the Druid's on the back foot the whole time, just kind of scrambling for mana to be able to make something happen.
Right, and honestly, jokes aside, how reasonable do you think a Spreading Plague into Branching Past potential push for lethal is actually in this matchup? Because Rogue always goes wide. Its whole point of winning the game is a lot of minions.
Often, because there is no real use for the card Vanish in the matchup, you will often see Vanish hit on the Spreading Plague turn for that kind of similar reason. You probably burn some cards first and foremost, and you give your opponent a bunch of fairly trashy minions when they have to play them one by one in their hand. So quite often, you can trade through maybe 3 of the taunts on board and vanish the others if there's not a hand size problem for the opponent, and you can just reset with more 1 mana 4/4s on the board after that. So there's plenty of game in Quest Rogue to be able to deal with Spreading Plague and prevent that counter push. Quite often, what you're looking for as the Druid, if you don't just get to save up for lethal in the Dream World, which of course is plan A, it always is. If you don't get to save up for that, you're looking for a Mali swing turn. Like Mali, clear the board with the swipe, make them answer that you're Mali. If they can't, they die.
Seems reasonable to me. At the moment, though, Bobby X does have to piece together something a little bit more active than all of the spell damage cards and none of the things that buff them.
Yes.
So this Branching Pass could be used just to cycle, depending on what this draw is off the top. Maybe this Branching Pass could be used for cycle, I don't know.
So many options!
Your move, Bobby, your move.
Yeah, and this is the problem with drawing all your 2-ofs is just functionally your hand is actually half the size, right? Like in terms of different things that you can do, you have so few options when you keep drawing multiple copies of the same card.
Well, this is a tough one because Roger's got off to a pretty good start, as you talked about earlier, but his hand size is fantastic right now. He has minions on the board, which, although small, are still pushing a good amount of damage, to be honest. And now, are the swipes used to remove this? You'd like to hope not if you were Bobby. But what else is he going to do? That's the problem. Does he want to Branching Pass just to draw and then kind of pass the turn? Because there isn't a lot he's going to draw into that is actually active this turn.
I like this play. Very, very aggressive. Of course, he was only dealing with 2 health minions, so this was almost just the optimal way to do it, essentially. But I like just pushing through damage, because if he can just get a little bit more chip damage in, suddenly he's threatening a Malagos draw for lethal with double Moonfire in his hand. So I like just making Roger panic just a little bit here. Of course, there's no damage permanence against Quest Rogue. They're one of the few Rogue decks that really do have the resiliency and healing. They have Vicious Scale Hides to get them out of range, and they also have that Valera, which can prevent a key turn lethal coming out from Druid, because the spells are targeted. They do have to be pointed at face. It's not Mind Blast or anything like that.
Right, and there is a small opening for Bobby if he does draw Mali. Like, okay, literally next turn. You know, he can get it down before Valera's going to be live. And also, most importantly, Vicious Scalehides are great and almost give unlimited healing to the Quest Rogue in some sense. But until that quest is active, live, and ready to go, they do very, very little.
Right.
Prep is there, though, so once this quest is active, we saw it was there 3. But so far, that's going to be number 4. And it looks like the prep into the Vanish is going to be number 5.
So I think the reason this is happening, this is a loose usage of Vanish, let's call it that. Just a loose usage of Vanish. You know, just using it to bounce one single minion. Like I said, it can be very valuable for dealing with the very irritating Spreading Plague in the matchup. But I think you kind of alluded to it. Bobby X does have a window here where he could just drop Malagos this turn. So Roger needed to set up a turn where if Malagos does come down, he has the potential to deal with it. And there's no way he has potential to deal with Mali unless he completes quest. So he was willing to sacrifice anything that turn up to and including his Vanish to make sure the quest was done. Not just because quest good, completing it sooner better, but he specifically needed to be able to deal with Malagos this turn.
Right, and now we can see the Branching Pass go down for armor because guess what? Ultimate Infestation and even an Arcane Tyrant are there, locked, loaded, and ready to go. But this now gives Roger his own window of if Roger has an inkling that there's going to be a UI coming next turn, well, that kills one. What about the rest? Because you could just be dead anyway, even with all that armor.
Looks like he is going to slow play, though. No more additional development. Making sure he holds on to some of these fast minions, the Russian charge minions from hand again, so he can potentially take care of that Malagos if it does come down. And if he's not going to develop anything else, he caught his sequencing at the last moment, just in case he drew something that would make him not play quest that turn. I guess he could mimic pod into prep number 2, right? It'll make it worth it.
Well, you know, we talked a lot about how current Quest Rogue beats Spreading Plague. Well, they have... Ooh, that's unfortunate. They have a Rogue Swipe, also known as Fan of Knives, that is going to help actually get through that Spreading Plague if and when Roger chooses to go wide and almost expects at least one Spreading Plague to be in hand by now. 9 cards left in the deck. So you realize how quickly both these decks draw.
Oh, yeah.
We blinked and they've got less than 10 cards now.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa, okay.
I think it's always surprising, particularly with Quest Rogue, just how many cards they can draw, because, you know, Mimic Pod and Novice Engineers, that's about it, right? Sometimes there's fans in there, sometimes there isn't, but because there's so many ways to recycle those effects, like, suddenly you find them drawing masses of cards very quickly.
Bit of a savage sap coming down there and just really putting a stop sign on Bobby X, because there's just... Now, 10 mana is not enough mana to get things done, which is the issue, right? Where is this dead turn to just drop Malagos and hope? It doesn't really exist with this much pressure on the board from Roger. And the problem is the turn you buy using Spreading Plague, but you can't do anything else, so you still need a turn to do Mali, and we can see the Fan of Knives is only going to stop Roger for one single turn.
Yeah, the Spreading Plague just doesn't really feel like progress here, right? It feels just like a stopgap that you need in order to stay alive just one more turn.
It's the Freeze Mage conundrum.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no good Frost Novering if you're not making any progress in the same turn.
I don't know how he does make progress. That's the problem. I don't know if he even has the tools right now to do that.
I'm not seeing it. I'm kind of scanning the hand back and forth, looking for some answers that allows him to progress somewhat.
I guess Druid just needs a deal 4 to the board AoE.
Yeah. So he could have gone at best like Mali Moonfire Naturalize, and it still leaves 12 on the board to kill the Mali. Like that's no kind of play.
And with no Flibidinous Floop in hand, you're not even opening up a chance at finishing the game. But also, double swipe, double Moonfire gun. Why do you even need Mali anymore?
Ooh, there is the Vanish as well now. With all of these bouncers on the board, that's so much damage going through.
Well, I wonder as well, do you actually killing off this Plague and then having Vanish just loaded for a worst case another Plague?
That's what I was referring to.
It's huge, right?
It's just he has the Fan of Knives for the answer there, but then with that Vanish draw, it means that even if he has to plow through another pile of Spreading Plague, he has Vanish and a handful of charges that can just finish the game.
Could just not bother trading them a Vanish anyway, but as we said a couple of turns ago, it was not looking good for Bobby X, and that continued to be the trend as Roger takes game number 1 in a pretty convincing fashion. I do have to say there just wasn't a lot Bobby X could do about it. Double swipe, double moonfire, double branching paths. Those are not, as you said, the two ofs you want in the deck. You need to get to your end game faster than the Rogue can, and Bobby could not.
Yeah, if he'd have, drawn some of those cards, but the second copies of them had been, Nourishes earlier on, the, a Dream Petal Florist that he could use to get a cheap Malagos, and then Mally Swipe, early in the game, all of these kinds of options, then we might have had a slightly different story. But as it was, he just had pairs of useless cards throughout. There was nothing but 2-ofs in his hand, and it was the 2-ofs from the wrong half of the deck as well.
Yeah, no good having a pair of 2s in any way. So Bobby X versus Roger. Roger taking the first game 1-0. As we said, this matchup looks pretty close to us, so it's by no means over. More of this series coming right up.
With the developers.
My battle cry upon coming into the room, it's hard to say what its effect would be in-game, but I'm sure it would probably ensue in some kind of 80s musical stinger.
I think it'd just be like an exasperated sigh.
Honestly, it'd probably be a laugh, because I just laugh all the time in any situation, and sometimes inappropriately.
I'm very tired in the mornings, and I always have meetings in the mornings, so I just kind of like sit down like...
I'm pretty sure I would not have a battle cry, and I would have stealth, because that is what I do all day on accident, is accidentally startle people that I just wanted to talk to.
Oh man, if I had my own battle cry, it would probably bring joy and a smile, put a smile on everyone's face.
You just open the door and like dun 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 dun, trumpets are thundering. It's like, who's? Oh, it's Josh again. Oh.
If I were going to try and not startle people, then my battle cry would probably be, hey, can I talk to you real quick?
I don't know if I'd have a voiceover. It'd be more of an aura where like you just enter the room and everyone just starts like laughing.
If I had a battle cry whenever I walked into the room, it would be to transform the color of a random person in the room's hair. Just like that.
Give that minion a turn to get ready.
Oh, where's your huffer? I'll take you on! Dragon Hawks forever! And what do you want? You want some of this too?
Let me change your mind.
Woohoo! Zombies! Go, one zombie! Get these stupid dragon hawks off my field! Get them the heck out of here! And the lynxes are still back!
Greetings.
Boo, lynxes!
Greetings. 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 Greetings.
We've got Roger currently leading the series 1-0 with a win with his Quest Rogue, but it's by no means over yet for Bobby X. There's still plenty more games coming up. We can see the bans going out. It's actually Bobby X lost his Rogue to the ban from Roger, and then Roger lost his Even Warlock. What do you make of this, the Quest Rogue being banned out specifically?
Well, I mean, I should have touched on this in the intro, really. The difference really being that Even Lock and the Mally Druid. I mentioned why it gave, in my opinion, an edge towards the Even Lock player, but probably didn't elaborate enough on why. It's because that deck is strong enough in the series that it can draw out a ban from the opponent, and essentially that means in a lineup which is then pretty much mirrored, you essentially have a free ban, right? We saw how easily Quest Rogue got through from Roger's side. He has the freedom because he doesn't have to ban Even Lock from Bobby X. He can just say, all right, you don't get to play your Quest Rogue. It's insane in all of these matchups, but you can't have it.
Yeah, when in the best of 5, when you get what I will, you won't see me, but air quotes put a free win, you're looking pretty good to win the series. Believe it or not, winning more games is good. But let's get into game number 2. Roger's going to be on the Death Rattle Hunter, and so is Bobby X.
Straight away, you see the Nerubian Unraveler is being packed in there for Bobby X, and Roger as well is playing 2 copies even in his Death Rattle Hunter. So it does seem that both of these players were somewhat teched out and prepared to play these mirror matches if it did come down to it. Not that the Death Rattle Hunter mirror is necessarily a huge one for the Nerubian Unraveler. It can definitely have an impact on the likes of Play Dead, just making the combo turns a little more costly, but they are prepared to be able to take on those cloning gallery priests and so on.
Right, I think often what the Unraveler does in this matchup is it's just another thing to play on those turns 6 and 7s when you don't have a lot to do with this deck. So if you just play, it's like if you were in a Stranglethorn Tiger in this deck if you didn't need tech cards. Well, that's just a solid play on turn 5, 6, or 7 in this deck, to be honest, because you can hero power with it as well. Like, it's just a solid card that might mess with your opponent, and that's just good. That's just okay, considering it's so much better in other matchups too.
It's in what I think is a designated tech card slot in the deck. Like, Death Rattle Hunter has this core of like 26 cards that it needs in order just to function. But then there are some like tech card slots where we are seeing, I don't know, Gluttonous Oozes,
Wing Blast,
Defender of Argus, Wing Blast in this case as well, but particularly if you want to look at like the 6-mana minion tech card slot, we used to see Mossy Horrors there when the big problem was Druid. But now, of course, the big problem potentially is more spell-based combo decks, so Nerubian Unraveler coming in to kind of take up that slack.
Yeah, and if you want just a very simple, straightforward example, Psychic Scream with Priest. You know, you really want them to not do that, because that's one card that really messes with cards like cubes. So yeah, it's a really nice tool to just give your opponent a speed bump, regardless of how big that bump actually is. It's one of my favorite plays, honestly. I love it so much. Spider Bomb just on an empty board, just coin it out, or just play it on 3.
Really?
Well, what does your opponent do? It's kind of awkward. They spend a turn playing a minion that they know is going to die, and then you get to play another minion. Maybe not in this matchup because it is mirrored, so it gets a little bit trickier, but in general, you just lock out so much tempo from your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just using Spider Bomb as a
counter. No!
Raven, calm down, okay? Deep breath. Take a moment if you need it. But yeah, it's just essentially using Spider Bomb as a 3-drop, right? Like, you could coin out a 3-drop here, right? Just a normally statted 3-drop and say the same thing, right? They're going to play a minion and it's going to trade and die. It's similar.
Mountain Giant in even.
Sure. Yeah. If you're going second and you coin out the Spider Bomb and somehow your even lock opponent is playing Mountain Giant in response to that, then
you don't have to coin out. You can play it on 3 and you still go into Mountain Giant.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it can kill any minion. Tar Creeper, for example, so on.
No, I understand, and I'm agreeing with your point. I just think it's important to say that like it's Spider Bomb, which is a card that can kill anything, being used to actually deliberately kill something of lower value than it might do. Just functioning as a 3-drop in the deck, and that's okay.
And that's okay, so this game is progressing pretty quickly, because often, unless you do get the nuts, then you're not doing anything too crazy in Death Rattle Hunter for the first 4 turns or so. It's normally very reactive with flanking strikes, for example. But for now, the cube has gone down on the egg for Bobby X, and now you just have to say he's leading the pack and he's ahead in this game, because there's just so much more value already on the board.
Yeah, he's ahead right now in terms of board position and tempo, but the rest of his hand is not looking incredible compared to this Kathrena that we're looking down on the other side in Roger's hand. Looking thoughtful.
For a split second, because there are instances of like weird card interactions, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, so Wing Blast does say if a minion's died, it costs 1. Nerubian says spells cost more, but it does say it costs 1, so who wins? But really, I was just thinking a Wing Blast is about to cost 8 mana soon, which is going to be pretty funny. Yeah, these Nerubians are just probably going to headbutt each other at some point soon and just be like, well, okay.
Choosing to take the preemptive poke on the 5/4, meaning that if it does go into the Witchwood Grizzly, he can then attack it on the next turn as well to finish it off. It's probably a smart decision.
Yeah, I'd actually love the Nerubian this turn, purely because Houndmaster Shoal with that Spider Bomb rushing is very, very powerful indeed.
I agree, because the play you would like to do this turn costs 6, and the play you would like to do next turn costs 7. And that makes sense.
But the play I'd really like to do this turn is the Houndmaster Shoal Spider Bomb.
Yeah, okay. The play I'd really like to do this turn costs me 18 mana.
So yeah, play the one that costs 6. Just going for Wing Blast.
So I think this is a nod towards the play that Roger did make on the previous turn that I was talking about coming in, where he preemptively poked the Devil Saw. So because of that, Bobby X did not want to use that Devil Saw to trade and wanted to protect it. So essentially, instead of playing a fresh 5/5 himself with the Nerubian Unraveler, he essentially just retained an old one on the board by using Wing Blast to not value trade and just send that damage face. I'm on board with it.
I wonder.
I'm interested in how Bobby X is going to decide to utilize, or maybe even not, just these eggs. Because eggs are a weird thing in this matchup where your opponent often just doesn't proc them. Because Hunter can very easily not do that. It's not like, you know, Warlock decks that are forced to use AoE clears, for example. You can use it as a deterrent for that.
Right.
Hunter can actually just dodge that because even the Rexar just does too. So these eggs are going to be interested to see if this kind of drops the power level of Bobby X's board quite dramatically when this cube dies. And good to note, of course, that Katharina is getting closer and closer for Roger, and that is normally a card that when you have it and your opponent doesn't in the mirror, you normally just win, because they often can't come back from that kind of power.
Big 50-50, gets the 5/4, which means he can now completely trade through this cube, leaving essentially 0 power on the board, which is a huge win for him, considering how much pressure he was facing down.
My pack will hunt you down.
That's actually a really good draw. Not so much because it's Keleseth, but because it's not a Spider Bomb that goes into a Spider Bomb.
Oh, it was hooking left, Raven. It caught the left edge of that Devil Saw egg.
Yeah, Shaw's just like, wasn't even close. Oh. Okay, this Katharina's getting progressively worse. Is that just one Grizzly that Roger has left in the tank? Oh no, one Devil Saw as well. He runs double Devil Saw, King Crush, double Grizzly.
Yep.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Zuliak's draw is beautiful for Bobby X though, and luckily his last couple of draws have just been enough to maintain this tempo lead, because he needed to do it, because if he didn't find more gas, you know, just a couple of Devil Saw eggs that he would have been left with were not going to be enough against this Katharina coming down.
And most importantly, they allowed him to retain the Spider Bomb. That Keleseth, I think, was huge, because you would have had to run the Spider Bombs into each other just to get them killed and maybe get the 5/5.
Yeah.
But that was absolutely huge. So even if something problematic came out of that Katharina, it was already dead to a large extent. So Bobby X very, very quickly evens this matchup, and in that Death Rattle Hunter mirror. So yeah, this is still very, very close in the series, I think, Sol.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming down to almost direct mirrors at this point, with that Evon Lock banned out, the Quest Rogue picking up a win on one side and being banned on the other. We've got just the remaining decks to win with the mirror. We've got the Clone Priest, and then that Mali Druid needs to find a way over the line for Bobby X as well. It's already failed at the first attempt.
Yeah, it's good, and I genuinely feel like it is just down to this Druid, because you look at the Clone Priest, it's got a mirror, and then a matchup I feel is favored in the Death Rattle Hunter. So then it really is just, well, you...
Double Nerubian Unraveler Death Rattle Hunter, though?
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, he's playing the 2, isn't he?
That starts to get a little bit spooky.
Yeah, I take it all back now. I'm generally just unsure as to what's going on in that. But, it's a tough one, isn't it? I don't know. It really does, for me, just come down to, well, you brought Mali Druid. How confident is anyone that brings Mali Druid? They must be very, but it's not really a deck that's been shining recently,
Yeah,
is it?
I wonder about the people who brought Druid in general, because it's not a class that I've had a huge amount of success with or faith in since the Nourish nerfs and the Wild Growth nerf. There's always loyalists though, right? There's always combo Druid loyalists, be it, you know, Hakar Druid, what used to be just Azalina Togwaggle Druid, or be it Mali Druid, whatever end game it is, various people over the years have really, really loved that kind of deck with Druid. So some people just do have a wealth of experience built up with it. And you were talking earlier about the idea of comfort picks, and we, had a little moment about whether comfort picks are a thing or whether, your job as a professional player is to make sure you are comfortable with whatever you think statistically gives you the best chance of winning. But the reality is people do pick comfort picks. It is a real thing.
Anyone who says they don't is a liar.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
People have biases. Hearthstone players aren't robots and never will be, and thank heavens for that.
Yeah, that'd be a really weird interview process for a start. But yeah, let's see what's going to go on in this game. Roger with the Hunter does have that Kelseth on 2, options on 3 as well with this egg. And also, because of this specific matchup, and there are a few others similar, he can just flank and strike his egg to activate it. What are you flanking striking in Druid early game?
Yeah,
not a lot, Sol.
I think the 5/7 cube off the top might just have a little something to say about it, but before that came along, yeah, very much a play that was in the window of possibility.
Do you think you ever want to coin a Rexar in this match?
No.
Okay.
I mean, with a certain hand that has nothing else to do, sure. With a hand that has just minions and things to play, no. I will spend my mana doing immediate things that get guys in play rather than, spending 6 mana essentially doing nothing.
Also, this is representing nearly half of Bobby X's life total, right?
Yep.
Right now with just 12 damage on board, and the cube's still gonna splurt out some other things after it dies, and Arcane Tyrant just not doing too much to fight for the board. We might just see Flabidda's Floop as well come down. Just have some minions to fight with.
In my experience,
I guess not now because the hit.
Yeah, in my experience in this matchup, you very often, almost always, need a Malagos swing turn, similar to what I was talking about in the Quest Rogue matchup, in order to win the game, because it's not like you can attrition them out like you can with like an Odd Paladin or a pure aggro deck, right? Like, it's not like you survive, you get a big spreading plague down, and the game's over because they can't beat it, right? So I personally don't think the additional 3/4 there was a big enough upside to take you away from the potential of Flabidda's Floop swipe with a copied Malagos later in the game.
Yeah, interesting, because my view was, are you even going to get to the late game?
He's already in the late game. He's got 10 mana next turn. What are you talking about?
I mean, before you're dead, basically, but yes, fine. The Malagos and the Spellstone is available, even a Faceless Manipulator as well. But there's also just a lot of damage right there, and there's a Nerubian Unraveler, which, although you could say, well, can be killed by the Malagos, not without a hero power or a spell being cast at it, so that is going to be a little bit frustrating for Bobby X to deal with. So there's 10 damage available this turn. It's yeah, there's no way with only 6 mana for Roger that Stitch Tracker is going to be able to pull him anything here. They could finish up the game this turn.
Nope.
And the problem now is if you put too much damage into the Malagos, is it just worse because you can't win the game?
Yeah, the problem with...
I think I like going face. Your opponent's not got many cards.
I am
Just use
also
Moonfire.
a big fan of going face here, but the problem is that like the Unraveler kind of quote lockout turn isn't really a lockout because the one thing they want to do is still possible even if you play Unraveler. So I do kind of like just making the board state more resilient and potentially pushing just max damage.
Whoa, whoa. Wait, what? I like putting my opponent to 2 health that turn, so they can't. They don't have much leeway with the cards available in hand. Can you explain that trade to me, Sol? I'm actually just confused.
I admit I'm struggling.
The circle of life is over.
See, swipes were extremely scary there, so he wants to potentially mitigate the threat of swipe coming down. So I guess his thinking is worst case scenario if my opponent does have the option that, clears my board, or at least, pops the cube, leaves the egg, 0 power in play. Essentially, I can then Rexar on the following turn to be able to deal with the Malagos. Whereas if he just goes face, yes, my opponent is at 2, but if they then are able to swipe clear the board and just hero power out of range of my hero power, I then have no way of killing this Malagos for the remainder of the game, which is logical, but it does now mean you suffer a little bit here. And I think I think in the long run, Roger's play does work out reasonable because he knows he's happy to reset for the longer game because he does have plenty more gas in hand and a Rexar to go, so he doesn't have to win immediately. Because there was a very real risk of that situation going wrong if there was a swipe in hand for Bobby X.
Yeah, there was. I feel like you would be forcing your opponent to hero power every turn then because you can keep minus, like, 2-ing off the hell.
I mean, there's branching paths and Malfurion and all kind of things.
There is, but I think when your opponent's on 4 cards,
yeah,
you know, there's a certain level of mindset of
Yes.
going, well, if you don't have it, I just win.
Yes.
And this is a very important game to win, going 2-1 up in a championship match. I don't know. I think I would have gone aggressive. Maybe I just go face too much. Maybe there is such a thing, so I don't know.
Yeah, there is definitely serious fault in assuming your opponent has everything when they only have 4 cards in their hand.
Okay, so there is Houndmaster, which allows crazy things to happen in most cases. The Spider Bomb can't actually kill itself off with a trade, so it gets a little bit dicey. Is there any way you can... Yeah, Roger's just suffering because he's a hunter right now and just doesn't have 10 mana like the Druid has for a few turns. Because
Spider Bomb play dead Terrastale Stalker here just to take 2 shots at the Mally. If he kills this second Mally, he's essentially won the game. So he has 2 shots at it here. That's a 33, and this is now a 50-50! And that is a potential disaster for him. Bobby X needs help, but he has Nourish giving him 3 shots at pulling this out now. He needs to make this one Malagos that he has remaining do the world of work for him, and those are not the tools he needs.
yeah, the benefit of the play from Roger is that, guess what, friend? The Spider Bomb's still on the board.
Yeah.
It will still snipe someone unless there's a silence that doesn't exist in Bobby X's deck. So yes, he might not die this turn, but the bomb will get the work done because there are just limited options that would negate that happening.
Right.
Spider Bomb almost... well, maybe not now. Maybe just play Devil Saw.
This beast will not be tamed.
Oh, wow. I mean, when there are additional copies and you're not tracking and deleting the other ones, that's a perfectly reasonable situation.
Yep. I actually did kind of wonder why Devil Saw wasn't the play there. Kill the Mally with a Devil Saw, you still have the bomb down. You push more damage, and you have a Devil Saw on the board.
All good
You've
points.
seen one naturalize already? It kills a Plague token?
Yeah. My only real counterpoint to that is after he's killed this Malagos, what else does he really need to bother with? I guess there is a Lich King left hanging around, which is the last real threat that he's dealing with.
Do you ever have to... Okay, you slow play the game. You set up for a King Crush cube. Bobby X facelesses your cube and then naturalizes it with the King Crush or Devil Saws in, and you lose.
Yep.
Legal Hearthstone play,
those,
as Saul would say.
Those were all words.
Points for ending the game quickly with big minions instead of waiting. The most mediocre Alexstrasza you've ever seen, with both players being on around 15 health.
Yeah. Bobby X wisely taking the play that heals himself for 3 as opposed to his opponent for 1.
Agreed.
High level Hearthstone right there.
I mean, with the armor totals, that just confuses matters, to be honest.
My pack will hunt you down.
Cute. Yeah, I like it.
See Roger playing around the faceless into naturalized play by trading off the cube. This Lich King's going to have to do a mighty level of work.
I want to clarify, you're laughing. He actually is. Like he genuinely
I'm just laughing because I brought it up earlier.
Right, no, that is an out. Like, in this matchup, you don't want to give your opponent a faceless on cube, especially when, as you said, they play the card Naturalize that can create havoc for you. I think that play was very nicely executed by Roger on a number of levels. He saved the Spider Bomb because he knew Lich King is a more important card to have an emergency button against than the Alexstrasza was, and he also got development out of a cube in a situation where he could pop it open immediately and get value and not offer that out of the Faceless to his opponent. He built a 2-mana Angry Chicken. Sorry, I just noticed that.
All important factors. You know, you're talking about one thing, but the other important things do happen while we are talking. We cannot say more than one word at a time, unfortunately. Death Grip. Okay, probably the best pull, to be honest, for the Death Grip, with everything that's left. Being able to Faceless one of the Grizzlies is nice, just so it actually gets to 12 health as opposed to plain Big Grizzly from hand. Right. Not 12 health. Devil Saw, King Crush, you know, these kind of make one of the few minions in the game or played right now that makes Grizzly not look that cool with its 12 health.
I believe all of his Spider Bombs are gone at this point. I'm not sure. I think he's used 2, and I don't think either of them were additional copies from Stitch Trackers or anything of the like.
Is he looking for a cube? He has one left, right?
I believe so.
Because then you could just play a King Crush. You've seen both naturalizes. There's no real way it dies. Play King Crush. If they've not killed him normally, next turn you have cube. Play dead.
Yeah, Bobby X actually only plays one Faceless Manipulator, in his deck, so he's now safe from any of those threats coming down, having seen it being used to copy to 312.
Yep, pushing 6 pretty straightforward here, and I do not believe there is a card in Bobby X's deck that can save him now. It's 15 damage on board. Probably a little bit annoying actually for Roger that he had to play the King Crush and not the Devil Saw there. Because the 1 health difference, or 1 damage difference, should I say. Couldn't save the King Crush for charge damage on top of a Devil Saw, but it didn't matter. Roger takes the win in game number 3, going 2-1 up. But I'll have to say, at least in this series, Death Rattle Hunter's been getting some work done.
Yeah, not a...
Quite convincing.
A deck that's really kind of plummeted in popularity since we did perhaps last championships and even playoffs before this. And because of those nerfs that came in that really hit Druid, Death Rattle Hunter was kind of a deck that got weirdly caught in the crossfire, because one of the big reasons why you would play Death Rattle Hunter is to farm the Druids. So when the Druids got nerfed and therefore got less popular, there was suddenly less of a reason to be playing that Death Rattle Hunter deck. But we're seeing it back with a vengeance, and both times I've seen it on stream at least and paid attention, it's looked pretty impressive doing the job it needs to do.
Yeah, it's been a general surprise for me throughout the whole day, to be honest, how much Hunter we've even seen be allowed to be played, because it's the highest brought class of them all so far. It's I don't know this for sure, I'm probably going to be wrong, but it feels like it has the highest win rate we've seen on stream. I feel like we've seen Hunters demolish left, right, and
Bold
center.
statement, Raven.
I do go crazy sometimes, so I go pretty
it
wild.
Feels like it has the highest win rate.
It feels like maybe.
It's
I'm not sure about this.
Definitive as Raven ever gets.
Well, that's going to be it for this game. We've got plenty more coming up, and maybe only one more as Roger could take the win and take the series, but I'm sure Bobby X is going to be fighting back strong. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
Well played!
In this video, we'll share some pro tips that top competitors like Purple use to dominate the late game in Hearthstone. So get ready to take long-term control and start winning more hotly contested late game scenarios. Our first late game pro tip is, know your win condition. What does that even mean? Win condition is a term that many pros use to describe the most common way a deck achieves victory. In the late game, you'll have seen most of your cards, so your deck should be winning its intended way. Some decks have very specific win conditions, like Togwaggle Druid, but most archetypes have a general win condition. Control decks seek to win via fatigue, by using their resources to efficiently deal with their opponent's threats. Aggro decks seek to win by creating damage races, where their more efficiently costed minions can overwhelm the opponent. And mid-range decks win by encouraging repetitive one-for-one trades, allowing their inherently sticky minions and card advantage spells to outpressure the opponent. Recognizing both your opponent's win condition and your own is crucial to dominating the late game. So always try to steer matches towards game states where your deck is strongest. And our second late game pro tip is AVT, always value trade. Value trading means killing an opposing minion with an attack that leaves your minion still alive. This produces card advantage, since your opponent has lost a card on the board, but you haven't. And card advantage is crucial to winning the late game. Why? Because in long Hearthstone games, both players will have used most of their cards. And when you're out of spells and minions, you're out of ways to win. So pick up value trades wherever possible. They help almost every win condition, whether that's by preserving cards on the board to end the game before fatigue against control decks, or by leaving more minions on board to go face for aggro decks. The pros know that navigating the late game is key to winning both on the ladder and in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. So use these late game pro tips and level up your game in preparation for Hearthstone Esports 2019 program. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, brought to you by the coaches at GamerSensei, please visit playhearthstone.com/esports for more of the Well Played series and all things Hearthstone Esports.
Well played!
What? I'm not doing this.
He didn't even get to hear my British accent. Bollocks! What tomfoolery is this? Balderdash? Rubbish? Malarkey? Poppycock? Codswallop? London Bridge is falling down? Tea and crumpets. I'm so smart and Raven's dumb.
Don't appreciate that impression of Sottle, to be honest, from Admirable there. The producer of those and the person who wrote the scripts assures me that line was not included. I don't believe him at all.
Oh, he's like, not only was it in that script, but he actually writes the script for all my casting. That's the reason why I'm so mean to you. I'm just following what Mike says.
It's just not a surprise whatsoever. So apparently I'm getting these scripts sent to me as proof, but maybe he just wrote that 5 minutes ago. I don't know. You can never trust that guy. But anyway, let's go focus on more important things as we get into this series.
How well they matched my shirt.
That was pretty impressive. Yeah. That was actually, believe it or not Sottle's shirt on
I
there.
mean, it fit TJ as opposed to me, so I think it's fairly obvious it wasn't the same.
Hey, look, you never know tricks of the camera, okay?
Right,
So production value, as you can tell from these opens, is through the roof. Let's go back into this series into more serious matters as we move on. Roger versus Bobby X. Roger just coming off the back of a very, very convincing win with his Death Rattle Hunter. Only has his priest left, whereas Bobby X just plugging away with the Druid right now, and it's not been looking great, to be honest.
It hasn't. Not up until this point. It is slightly more entering its element when it comes up against the Clone Priest, though. It's able to pull itself outside of most of the easiest burst ranges, so quite often it does come down to a minion battle. Raven is excitedly gesticulating.
So basically what you don't know is I've got an envelope that says the turn 9 clone win we talked about was not going to be the first match we cast of the day. It was actually going to be the last match we cast of the day.
I'm sure that's just as likely to appear as Mike's scripts.
I'm feeling confident about this one. I think the cloning gallery is going to come out on 9, and it may win the game. Very loosely interpretable. Call it my speciality. Bobby X, though, no ramp, which means this Druid is going to continue to just plug away, I guess, and keep chugging along, trying to get something going. But I feel like the second you give Clone Priest time is the second you lose.
Yes, but there is Twig coming out from Bobby X, which is his own kind of huge ramping tool, massive burst combo in the end, potential with it. I will say this deck from Roger, there's kind of a false equivalence here in terms of how likely it is to be able to do the explosive Xerix cloning OTK style thing, because he's refined the deck. It's what what they call the 4-minion version. There's only the Radiant Elementals, the Vel and the Malagos, and a Ziliax in there in terms of the minion package. So he draws minions a lot less often than anyone else does with a different build of the deck, but he is still just as likely to draw a Radiant Elemental, a Velen, or a Malagos, which will then mess up the combo. And he sacrifices the Gilded Gargoyles, which can potentially be used to compensate for not getting as many Radiant Elementals as you need to send out burst damage.
Okay, well, Bobby X is at least doing something early game. Does have the Twig down, as you said, and that Tyrant getting the work done already. Means that this Velen is already dead, but I think most importantly, he gets put in the pool. So the Eternal Servitude can be used if Roger so chooses next turn to just put a 7/7 on the board. And these early game moments are less, especially not against aggro, are less about the abilities of the cards and more about them just being big dudes you can keep on the board and maybe get some extra damage down.
As of right now, with a Mind Blast and a Smite, and with Clone Gallery in hand and no minions drawn just as yet, Roger is capable of 34 from hand on turn 9. Sounds fair, right?
Just don't branch him past Bobby.
We was at 44 already.
Yeah, but the Branch Pass definitely isn't helping this fight, and he fell into it a few times.
Naturalize, fantastic card in the matchup, because conversely to Common Wisdom, your opponent drawing more cards actually reduces their ability to kill you a lot of the time in this matchup.
And there's a
There
Mind
goes a
Blast.
Now with 1 blast drawn, 1 burned, there is no more from Shadow Visions, but there is still a Holy Smite in there, which actually a lot of the time is a better card to duplicate, but I will say that's more true in a world where you have Gilded Gargoyles, because additional coins can be used to throw out very cheap Holy Smites, right? Like 1 mana for 14 damage is a better ratio than 2 mana for 20.
Yeah, I will say, though, also not quite as good in a class that can generate double their health because of armor. So this is, I feel, going to be an uphill climb, but I will say that people talk a lot about the burst that Clone Priest can do. They maybe don't talk as much about just generating endless waves of 7/7s and 8/8s, which can often get the job done as well.
I agree, Raven.
I've heard hitting people in the face with very large minions often leads to a win.
I'm glad you're finally coming around. The far more important part of the deck, playing and reviving.
I'd say it happens
minions.
about 10% of the time.
Okay.
90% clone on 9. Victory.
Just when I thought you joined the coalition for reason, you had to send it back into the depths of lunacy.
I will never join a club you are in charge of, Sottle, no matter what the name of that club is.
Is that Woody Allen?
Did I just random?
No, you didn't.
I was like, I'm just clever.
There's a quote. He wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would accept him as a member. I believe that is a Woody Allen quote.
That feels more like something you would say.
What? I would love to join a club where every member was me. That sounds amazing.
But then who would you shout at?
Just have endless arguments. Be fantastic.
Okay, well, we see the Taunt's not going to be doing too much in this matchup, so Bobby X, of course, going for these Poisonous Spiders instead of the Malfurion, as they do, in a roundabout way, just gain more value most of the time. But it's a pretty sick Mass Hysteria, though.
Yeah.
Guaranteed clear! I can do Mass Hysteria maths. It's actually going to be Mass Hysteria, isn't it?
There's not a whole lot else going on right
no,
now.
that's what just hovering over each card. It's like Spellstone. Nope. Spellstone. Nope.
Yep.
Can't clone. Okay. Guess I'm spending 5 mana to kill the 2 1/2s. Or not? Okay.
Fully upgraded Spellstone this early on is pretty nice for Roger, although with his version of the deck, it's not like an enormous amount of value does come out of that Spellstone, because 4 minions is the maximum he's able to revive.
And most importantly right now, it's just another Velen ×2 in hand, because it will only regenerate that. I'm surprised genuinely that Roger didn't just go for the turn 9 win, to be honest. It's
My thoughts are plagued,
sick of your crap.
You mean my cod swallop?
Yes.
Got to be careful with saying things like that because I could slip into certain words that I'm just not allowed to say on broadcast. But it's okay in the UK.
Yeah, I mean,
is that our excuse? Are we sticking with it?
Essentially, every word in British is swearing.
My turn is not.
This spell just kind of a whiff, to be honest. There's not really a lot you're looking to silence in this matchup. Roger, looks like he's gonna crank things up a little bit. And to be honest, realistically, is there any reason not to? Because you have the Spellstone to summon the minions back, right? Like
He has Vivid Nightmare here as well, actually. He has enormous amounts of damage because Vivid Nightmare can double again. And he still has, with both Radiants in there, he still has Mind Blast Holy Smite to come out.
How much damage is that then? 40, 28?
68?
Teamwork.
Just one more than 67?
I mean, yes, I'm with you. Bold statement. It's lethal.
Quickly.
Roger's like, does doubling double work? How does that work again? Because it isn't.
Right, it's the order in which the operations are applied,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
When does it double, before
Yeah.
or after the 5 that's added? I
Well,
believe
that says
I
28
believe that is 40
as far
and
as I'm
28 from
concerned.
how I understand Hearthstone mechanics, and yes,
Okay.
it is. And Raven, after beating into the ground all day about how you just play Xeric's Cloning Gallery and win the game, Roger played Xeric's Cloning Gallery and dealt 68 damage with 3 additional cards.
I do feel, congratulations to Roger for winning, but I feel like it's more of a victory for me than it is Roger at this point. As it did take a while, but we got there. I called it. I misplaced the envelope that said this was going to happen. I'm sure TJ has it somewhere. All the time, Subtle. All the time.
I should be the bigger man and let him have his most minor of victories. But he clearly said turn 9 or before. And what turn was
I
that,
said
ladies
Clone
and
Gallery costs 9. He never listens to me, guys. He never listens to me. It's a tiring job, but someone's got to do it. But seriously, as we rein it back in just a little bit, congratulations to Roger. And that was just a very explosive end to what I felt was a very close series, even though the score may not reflect that.
Yes, I think it was a series where he had an edge moving into it because of that even lock that he'd brought, which in this particular mirrored match lineup forced a ban. And essentially, the inverse of that is that it gave him a free ban, which he used to then remove Quest Rogue from the equation. His Quest Rogue picked up an easy victory, and that really set the stall out for the series, where he was always playing from ahead. And you see now he's going to go through to fight the might of Bunny Hopper, who is really many, if not most players, pick for best player in the world currently. Obviously, we've seen the dominance of Hunter Ace and Just Saying go through all the tour stop seasons, but Bunny Hopper has achieved just as much, if not more, than those people in terms of high-profile tournaments while playing part-time. And now he's gone full beast mode. Bunny Hopper is full head in the game, PhD done, full-time Hearthstone. That's terrifying.
I feel like it's just comparable to Jaws. All this time, you've just been hearing, nah, it's just under the water. Now it's like Bunny Hopper's like, oh, I'm done with my work, so let's go. But yeah, kind of universally the most feared player in this tournament. But Bobby X is not out. He'll be facing Lion King, I believe, in Group D in that lower bracket match. So they're not knocked out yet. They have to lose again. But, it's going to be a strong match coming up at a later date, which is Roger versus Bunny Hopper. That's going to be a cracker. But I believe, it's a Bunny Hopper then. I believe Roger is ready for an interview. So let's swing it over there.
Thank you very much, Raven and Sottle. I'm joined by Roger, who's able to win his series pretty convincingly over Bobby X. I wanted to ask him first, how does he feel about the pressure? There's a lot of attention on Roger, to say the least, right now. And I think a lot of fans both are cheering and watching him to see what would happen.
现在有很多粉丝都在看你的比赛，那你觉得会压力很大吗？
很大，我压力很大。
Yeah, I have a lot of pressure.
Sure, and how do you deal with that? Because I know you're streaming a lot these days. I think you're Taiwan's most popular streamer there. So how do you manage that pressure, and how do you divide your time to competing versus streaming?
那你在台湾是一个非常知名的实况主，那你平常是怎么样分配自己的时间，然后又是怎样 调配自己的压力？
大部分时间其实都在玩一些其他的游戏，就想说分散一下注意力，然后大概快到比赛的时候才会比较开始认真的准备。对。
I actually spend a lot of time to play other games and only focusing on practicing just when close to the tournament.
It's been a few years since we've seen you compete in Hearthstone on U.S. soil. I think the last time was like 4 years ago. How are you enjoying America coming back this time around? Are you going to do anything fun since you last traveled here?
距离你上次来美国比赛已经大概是4年前了。那你这次回来美国再次比赛，你有什么心得吗？你有没有去哪里玩？
我前几天有去一下那个好莱坞那边，可是他们那边刚好在办奥斯卡，然后对我是很久没来美国比赛，因为前阵子表现都不是很好，结果这次来我觉得蛮开心的。
I'm happy to be here again. I went to Hollywood a few days ago, and I happened to we encountered the Oscar ceremony. Yeah, and I enjoyed it a lot.
All right. My last question is, you're going up against Bunny Hopper tomorrow, I believe. Do you feel confident going up against him? Because everyone's predicting him to crush the group. Are you going to be able to upset him?
你明天会遇上 Bunny Hopper， 大家都觉得他可能是这次比赛里面最强劲的对手。那你有什么想法吗？
我好希望没有明天就不用遇到他，因为我觉得感觉遇到他，而且他已经有那个就是门票了，然后还要这样来阻挡我们的路，我觉得很辛苦。但我明天还是会尽力想出办法去赢他。
So I really want to skip tomorrow because I don't really want to meet him because he already has the qualification to the World Champ, and however I'll still work hard and try to figure out a way to beat him.
All right, congratulations, Roger. Thank you for your time. And with that, let's head over back to Raven Saddle at the desk.
And TJ Memorable.
False. You've done great, Raven, but I'll take it from here.
Oh, right. I can say?
You can put your headset back on. Okay, thank you. My name's TJ, joined by Raven Saddle, and that's admirable for the official Day 1 HCT Winter Championship post-show.
Woo!
Yeah. Since you guys just got to talk, admirable, how you doing?
I'm kind of curious what Saddle has to say.
Saddle, how you doing?
Admirable is doing great.
Raven? So it comes to this, does it? Raven, how are you?
Feeling quite bad now.
Why is he being so mean to him just arbitrarily?
I feel like I should now say, Saul's feeling great.
All right.
Next. Well, TJ's feeling great.
I'm feeling great as well, guys. Thanks for asking.
Good morning,
Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the trends after one day of competition. Saddle, one-sided starts. 4 out of the 8 initial matches ended in a 3-0 sweep. Analyze that.
It's a story of lineups. It honestly is. I think a lot of people had very... Are you all right?
The second headline, it says aggro crag. Okay, keep going.
A lot of people had a lot of very different reads coming into this as to what were going to be the powerful lineups, and that led us to this kind of polarized triangle where we have aggro being anti-control being control, and then control being aggro. And in those initial matchups, that's what we saw. We saw one side of that beating up the other. It wasn't really until this series that we just saw where we saw 2 mirrored lineups, essentially, just in terms of overall strategy, go up against each other.
Yeah, that's right. And speaking of aggro, admirable, the aggro crag.
Ooh, it's one of the best decks that's out there.
All aggressive lineups advancing to the winner's match. We've kind of alluded to it on the pre-show, and not surprised to see this, but try and piece together something from me just giving you your analysis for you.
Well, I'm just going to kind of say it like weirdly and facetiously, where it's like people always talk about how they want to beat aggro, and then every single tournament people show up with aggro lineups, and then people think they're going to beat them, and then the aggro lineups win. It's really weird. Just keeps happening.
It does.
It's almost like aggro's the better lineup.
We interviewed
every single
a lot
time.
of players
like when I always say it.
Raven,
play some aggro.
Have some comments.
It's freaking good.
What he said.
All right, great analysis once again, Raven. Let's go ahead and take a look at the record by region. This may be a first for an HCT Seasonal Championship. 2-2 across the board. No region is on top. No region win.
He's just leaving. Raven left. He's done. He's stunned by the record by region. Accurate analysis.
4 years of casting with me, he's never walked out once. 2 minutes sat next to you, and he's had enough.
Raven, I will give you this opportunity right here to go ahead and give us some analysis on record by region. Europe is good. Thanks, Raven. Salo, anything to add?
I mean, we thought China were going to run away with it early on because 2 early wins, but then Saimiao kind of let the team down a little bit. He had one of the favored lineups. He was one of the few to lose with a lineup that he should have been favored with, but incredible to see all of the records by region tied so evenly.
Well, production is giving me the equivalent of the Oscars music, so let's go ahead and run through the schedule for the next 3 days. Tomorrow we're going to run through the winners and elimination matches. Saturday, the decider matches and quarterfinals, and of course, Championship Sunday, semifinals and finals, plus those potential tiebreakers for the world spot. But thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for joining me for the post show.
Thanks, Raven. He actually just left. I've never seen this before. It's a good bit. I respect this.
I think he's genuinely upset. I think I'm going to have to talk him round. Like, I am going to have to console him from the malice of TJ when I get backstage.
Nevertheless, it's still a good bit.
All right, well, we have nothing. The rest of the post show was me asking questions to Raven. So with him leaving, that's going to do it from us here at the Winter Championship. We started the day off with 16 players taking the stage, but unfortunately, 8 of them have gone down to the lower bracket. He just left.
I still can't believe it. I haven't even had anything come in here and say anything about it yet. I'm stunned.
Ugh. All right, that officially ends the post show for the HCT Winter Championship. Again, we saw the players take the stage this morning as we played through all 8 of the initial matches. The morning was filled with sweeps as we saw aggro decks have success across multiple matchups as players solidified their position within their groups. Tomorrow, we kick off the action with 8 players looking to punch their ticket to the quarterfinals, while the remaining 8 look to stay alive and hold on to their chances of reaching the World Championship. We'll be here tomorrow starting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time to find out what happens next. But until then, well played.